Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Welcome to RGV Aerial Photography's deep dive into images he captured this week around the shipyard and launch site in Boca Chica, Texas. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Starbase Weekly. My name is Mauricio. This is episode 84, and I'll pass this along to Indian Star.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 84 with flyover photos from Wednesday and ground photos from Friday. I'll pass it over to...
Didn't hear you pass that to, but I'm guessing that was probably Jake.
Jake. Yeah, I did say Jake.
Hey everyone, it's good to be back. Been away for about a week, so yeah, I'm just trying to get back in the loop again. And if we cover anything today that was covered last week, I do apologize in advance. With that, I'll pass it on to Nate.
Hey everybody, yeah, good to have you back, Jay. Good to be here. A lot of fun stuff happened this week. So, hey, got Zach back too, so I'm going to pass it over to Zach.
All right. Well, welcome everyone, and I'm glad to be back as well. Had to take a week off so I could take care of some personal stuff, but glad to be back. And as Nate was saying, there was a ton of stuff happening this week. It was really, really action-packed week. Obviously, we had the first full pressure test of the, I guess SpaceX calling it the flame deflector system. I personally have like 5 different names for it, so it's tough for me to decide which one to use sometimes. But yeah, we have some great footage from that, both from SpaceX, and we're going to also check out Mauricio's footage once we get to that part of the show. But we also had Falcon Heavy launch last night, which is one of my favorite rockets. So I feel like we should maybe go ahead and start with some footage from that, just from SpaceX's Twitter account. I'm not going to play the full launch, obviously. But a good side core landing is always awesome. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And I'm not going to be bringing in the volume here, but yeah, always awesome to see these side core landings. You know, I think it was a little bit disappointing that it was a night launch because you're really not able to see as much. But Definitely awesome seeing another successful Falcon Heavy launch, and I think Maxar confirmed yet last night that they had successful deployment and were able to start receiving telemetry and whatnot from the satellite. So everything is good there, and yeah, like it's really awesome how frequent these Falcon Heavy launches are becoming. I think this is, as far as I know, the last one that we have for a while, though. I don't know if you guys know any different than that.
Are we talking the last Falcon Heavy launch for a while, or just the last Falcon launch in general?
Well, as far as I know, I thought this was the last one of the year, but I could be wrong on that.
So we got another two this year. I think there's another one October time. I think it's the mission to Psyche, which was due to happen last year, but they run into some technical difficulties and missed the window for last year, and now they're gonna try again this year. And then there's another Space Force mission near the end of the year, I think. So yeah, in total, I think there's 5 Falcon Heavy launches this year, but remains to be seen if they actually all happen.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. I guess I was way off in my count. I thought this was the last one. So
It's the last scheduled one that I can find for this year. That doesn't mean that others won't slide into the year.
yeah, that's
Really?
awesome.
I see one for October 5th
Okay.
and December 30th.
I'm obviously looking in the wrong spot.
Awesome. Well, yeah, like I said, I wanted to show that footage at the beginning. And I do have some great video from Mauricio from that test yesterday, but we are going to wait until we get to launch site to show that because there's a ton of stuff to cover elsewhere. So, as always, let's go ahead and start us off at the Massey's test site, where we have a good amount of action here. There's been a lot of movement at Massey's. As you all know, Booster 10 was tested here last week and is already since moved back to the Sanchez site. So now we're left with Ship 28 at the Massey's site. So I believe Ship 28 arrived here on, oh man, I want to say Monday. I'm not sure on the date that it got here because there's been a lot of movement with with vehicles, but it's here now. And as of last night, Ship 25 did its first cryo test. Actually, I think that may have been its second one. There's been a lot happening, but I know it did one last night, so we were able to catch most of that on Lab Padres Raptor Roost camera. But yeah, they're definitely well into the swing of things with testing at the Massey site. It's really good to see the progress with just how fast they're able to crank out these initial cryo tests. And I think we should be seeing Ship 28 move back to the Sanchez site, most likely for engine install. And hold on, let's second. I think people are not seeing the right thing on this stream, so let me double check.
It was a me thing. I've corrected it. It's fixed now.
Okay. Great. Do we have I don't know if they were able to actually see the Falcon Heavy stuff earlier.
No, they didn't. You want to reshow?
Man. All right, cool. Well, let's go ahead and check that really quick. Sorry about that, everyone. Here we go. We got some, I'll start this video over. Booster side core landings. Yeah, as I was saying, the night launches are awesome if you're actually out there, just because you can really kind of see the way that it lights up the sky. But for viewing purposes, I think day launches are a little bit more exciting, in my opinion. But as I was saying earlier, another successful launch for Falcon Heavy, so it's really great to see the consistency that they have with that rocket. Really hoping that we get there with Starship pretty soon. But I think the next launch is right around the corner for us, so it shouldn't be too much longer. But let me go ahead back over to the Massey site. So as I was saying, we have Ship 28 over here, which is more than likely, we believe, moving back possibly this weekend. So I'm not 100% positive, just because I was getting ready for the show this morning. I didn't see whether or not the SPMTs actually moved over to Massey's already, but I believe they have.
It's more of a later thing at the launch site, but it is worth mentioning that Ship 25 has had its tagline attachment points reattached around the bottom of it again. So that may be coming off its test stand soon, and that may be one of the things that's moving. So yeah, it could be 25 and it could be 28 as well.
Yeah, it's crazy just having this many vehicles in motion. It gets a little bit difficult to keep up with them. But SpaceX has also deleted a few vehicles, so we'll address that when we when we get there. But yeah, so otherwise we also have the new test stand that we've been keeping an eye on has been making some pretty good progress, and this kind of is turning out to be like a basically a smaller version, and it's really not that much smaller, but a smaller version of the Can Crusher. Right now, we can see that they've begun to set up mounting points on the inside of this for um, the hydraulic pistons. So right now, I think this is arranged 13 in this ring and then 3 in here. So very clearly for a booster. But it doesn't look like it's going to, at least right now, have additional mounting points for the 20 outer engines. So this is like purely for the actual thrust puck. Very curious to me why they're doing this. I guess this stand potentially would allow them to actually transport a booster on top of it, similar to what they did with this stand for the starships. So
Yeah.
that's really the only thing I can think of. Do you guys have any other ideas on that?
I think you're right. It allows them to use the mega bay and high bay to get these vehicles on these stands, so they don't have to have another crane sitting around doing that job.
Yeah, it was pretty fun to see recently that that's how they solved that problem of getting these vehicles on these puck truckers, is by just taking them to the build site and using the bay bridge cranes.
Yeah, because the transportation has got to happen either way. So you eliminate a costly piece of equipment to rent and maintain.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Yeah.
I guess one thing that I'm wondering is, what the overall like weight difference is between these two test stands. Like, why can't they just do something similar with this? I know that the Can Crusher is kind of designed to sit flat on the ground, um, whereas this one may be on top of pipe stands or something like that. But it is a bit weird to me that it's necessary to have an additional stand. But I think maybe it's possible that they're just going to start using this for different types of tests, whereas this one is purely for um, testing those center 13 engines. We still have other tests that we're expecting to happen between these two, or at least for sure on this structure, but they appear to be getting this one set up for something else as well too. So it could just be that they need this for additional tests other than puck shucking, which is why they've built this new one. So that'll be very interesting. We also have additional stands kind of similar to this being constructed at the Sanchez site, which we'll be able to touch on here in a bit. But other than that, we also have something that we've been waiting on for a few weeks. We knew that there was going to be a new structure here at the Massey site, and I'm not really sure what to make of this one. So right now they've gotten started on the foundation, or these are very similar to the type of foundation used at the Star Factory, where they're all of the columns, the embeds are inside of these. Man, I don't even know what to call them right now.
Footings.
Yeah, inside of the footings. But this was a little weird because of how close they are together. So I'm really not sure what to make of it. You guys have any ideas?
Yeah, I was just about to say the footings at the top there, they seem pretty close together. There's like two rows of footings there. There doesn't seem to be much actual wide open space inside of that building, from what I can see.
Yeah, I can't even really imagine what you would put here where the spacing would need to be that close together. But
I That could actually be something to do with the mezzanine that's due to be installed inside of that building. So I know that was mentioned in the document.
yeah, so it's like a secondary floor.
Pretty much, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one to keep eyes on. The pattern of this is really weird as well too. So you have like 6 large ones. This is a little bit smaller right here, and then you have a bunch of smaller footings as well too. So very, very curious what they're going to end up doing here.
Yeah, it's interesting. The wide spot looks like it's probably wide enough for a vehicle to move, across the building. But just again, the footings, especially the smaller ones on the outside, are puzzling.
Yeah, usually they only do footings like this if there's going to be something extremely heavy in it, especially if the like the Star Factory, they have all the bridge cranes which are attached onto those columns. So, um, I mean, I feel like we're going to see some heavy equipment in there.
Does the document talk about height at all?
Um,
I don't think it does. I think it just mentions the footprint.
yeah, and they didn't mention anything about the purpose of it, did they?
I think they did. I'm just trying to find the document again now. I think they said it was a workshop building with a mezzanine. I think that's all it said in the document.
That is nice and broad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's one of those ones that we're gonna kind of have to wait to see how that develops, which tends to be the case for a lot of these things now. I feel like last year or in the past years, it's been much easier to kind of predict things, but lately it's like uh, seems like we kind of just really have to wait to see what happens in order to really get an understanding of what's going on. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that over the coming weeks and see what that ends up, what they end up doing here. But moving on, let's see. We still have not really seen any progress with getting the um, payload section that we're expecting to be tested in here. I do believe it was moved into the mid bay earlier this week, so I guess we'll probably see that once we get over to the build site. Um, but
Yeah, I think it was actually stacked on the single in the mid bay as well,
oh, they
but I
finally did
could
that.
be
Okay.
wrong. Yeah, I think they ditched the way they were going to do it in high bay and just went for something a bit more simple.
Well, hopefully that worked out because I know it didn't go too well the first time.
No, it wasn't particularly smooth.
Did you guys have anything else you wanted to mention over here at Massey's, or I think we should probably take some questions as well too.
Yeah, there's a ground shot of the can crusher we could take a look at it because I noticed there's new pistons sticking out the top of it
Oh
at an
yeah, good call.
angle, and they look like they're going to pull.
Let me move over to that. I have to scroll all the way to the end of these images over here. So just give me a second, and that is not the can crusher. Which direction is it? Huh.
Yeah, you can see it sticking out just above one of the blue generators.
There we go.
That's it. So yeah, so those are a new addition to that. And from what I can see, they're going to pull down on something. Not quite sure what yet, but yeah, I just thought it was an interesting change.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the angle of these is pretty interesting.
They weren't there during the flyover, were they?
No.
Yeah, it's tough to tell where these are actually
And
attached at.
they're cells too.
Yeah,
They're also
yeah,
load
Yeah,
cells.
they are. Yeah, they are.
yeah. We can see the cable plugged in right here. So each of these are load cells. Usually they do tend to have these on most of their, especially when they're pulling down on things. We don't really normally see them. I don't think we've seen them on the normal pistons that are on here in its original configuration. But yeah, this is going to be interesting. I don't really have any ideas on this one. The only thing I can think of is possibly would be related to the hot staging test article, but I mean, we're
Yeah,
expecting that to be on top of the booster forward tank section, so this doesn't really make sense to me the way this is configured so far.
yeah, that's I was thinking. Obviously, I was expecting the hot stage and test article to go on here next, but I'm quite baffled about where these pistons come into play right now, especially seeing as they're going to be pulling down on it.
Yeah, part of me is wondering if we may actually see the payload section on here instead of inside of the nose cone jail, but I don't know. That doesn't really make a lot of sense because this has been reconfigured and it's about the height that it needs to be um, for that payload section to sit on here. So
Plus, there's the piston attachment points near the top as well to attach to the rusty ring on top of that payload bay test article. They're all in the right position at the top.
are you talking about these ones?
No, if you look down a tiny little bit, up a bit more actually. See, there's 4 attachment points on the white upright pieces. You got 1 on the right, 2 in the middle, and 1 on the left.
Are you talking about these ones?
Nope, go to the right and up a little bit. That's it. There's 4 of those, and they correspond with the attachment points on top of the payload bay test article.
Ah, yeah. Okay, I know what you mean now. That does make sense. Um, interesting. Yeah, the one thing I'm not seeing on here is like any way for them to, any place for them to attach pistons down here, which is kind of another thing that we're expecting on that. So maybe it's possible that they're
There's one to the left here. Yeah, there's one right there to the left of your cursor. There's about
right here.
12 of those, I think, around the bottom. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I take that back. As you all can tell, I haven't been paying as much attention to these test structures, so thank you, Jake, for catching that.
It's all good.
Yeah, so I guess in that case, that kind of just adds to the mystery of what they're going to be doing on this. So, as far as we know, I don't think other than the hot staging test article and the payload section, like we don't really know of any new test structures that we're actually expecting to see any structural verification tests on. So that is a very interesting mystery right there.
Yeah, it's only those 2 test articles that I'm aware of right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the aerial of that. And so, we weren't able to see, I guess those pistons weren't attached at this point. They still do have the outer 20 pistons on here. These actually look different from this angle right now. I can't tell if they're the same ones that were on here before or not. Let's see if I can.
They changed a big portion of that whole setup out. If you'll remember a few weeks ago, that whole left side of the piston stands and everything were gone.
Yeah, I know they stripped out a lot of this stuff. Really interesting. Right here, this bar on the top, I think this is very similar to that Versa bar setup that they used on the orbital launch mount. So I'm kind of wondering if they're testing load cells with this setup right here.
It's worth mentioning as well. The pistons we see in the ground photo are just to the left there on the ground. I think that's them.
Yeah, are there only 4 in total? I think.
Looks like it.
Oh wait, here's a bunch more.
Yeah, I think they're going with the cage though, I think, for pulling down on S24.2.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Interesting. So do we have any questions on Massey's before we move over to Sanchez? Unless you guys had anything else you wanted to mention over here.
Well, do you want to cover the donations, Indian Star, before the questions?
Sure. Let's start with the donations. We actually received a gift membership. Jim Cavett donated a gift membership, and Trippy Dead was the recipient. We also have Jake Winlow, who donated an RGV photography membership, and Gary Holshot.
You cut out a bit there, Indy.
Then we have, I stopped talking too. Then we have donations from Steve Coates for $1.99, says a couple of bucks for the cause. Yazada donated $5, says SN15 Memorial Fund, which is true. I was going to say long live, but that's now gone.
Yeah, R.I.P.
We have a $20 donation. We have a $20 donation from 55 Chevy Guy who says, thanks for the great photos and commentary each week. Jim Cavett donated $5 again and says, all aboard. And then Steve Silvernail just became a member. Welcome to the team.
All right. Well, thank you for those. And Mauricio, did we have any questions here?
Yes, first question from Helios. Do we know how much longer S28 crowd test took in comparison to S25?
So far, it's just done single test. And it might it might be like B10 and only do that single test before moving back.
All right, and then the next question's from, I can't pronounce the name. Could this new building be for some kind of high bay?
I mean, anything's possible, but it's really tough to tell. I mean, in my opinion, the layout of these doesn't really make a whole lot of sense yet. So I'm not really sure what to say on that one. One thing I would maybe expect, not necessarily in this location, but if they needed a larger crane here, like if for some reason they wanted to start being able to, lift ships and boosters off of these test stands, they may want like a reinforced pad like this, but the position of this doesn't really make sense. I would actually expect that to be in between these two locations. So since that's not where it's at, really, really tough to anticipate what kind of structure that's going to be.
Yeah, I think it's hard to confirm exactly what this building is going to be for right now. But yeah, I do expect to see some kind of bay at Massey's at some point in the future. Because I don't think they're going to be wanting to roll vehicles back to the build site every time they want to work on them inside of a bay.
Here's a question that's in line with this topic. 55 Chevy Guy said, could the footings be for a fixed crane to transfer test items from transport stands to test stands without a mobile crane on site?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of along the lines of what I was mentioning. Again, I think the positioning doesn't necessarily make sense, especially considering that they already have the smaller crane out here, which seems to do the job just fine. So, um, yeah, I mean, as far as what we know in the paperwork, when they filed for this, um, it doesn't mention anything about a crane. So I guess I would rule that out.
I mean, it could essentially just be a ground fabrication building for Massey's, just for creating new parts for all of the test stands. That could be just all this is.
Right.
All right, and the next question is from Just Domimo. For the new clamps cause of the hot staging, I guess we're probably referring to either the can crusher um, or the nose cone cage. I'm not sure what that was in reference to.
I'm
Like,
guessing
in
they're
other,
talking about the ones that were sticking out at an angle on this one. Um, yeah, I would say it's possible. You know, I mean, the real only thing that we, actually, here's a thought. Let me go back to that. Let me go back to that ground image. Give me a second. So, I guess there may be a different another part of this structural test that we haven't considered, which is not only pulling down on uh, the ring section or the hot stage ring section. So the the forward dome of the booster will also kind of be experiencing a lot of force when the engines actually ignite. So I don't know if maybe they're pulling down, they maybe would pull down on the inside of that forward dome in order to simulate the force of the Raptors on top of it. I'm not really sure how that would work though, because the methane tank is pressurized, and so like they would be doing that test on an unpressurized forward dome section. So yeah, I mean that's really the only other thing I can come up with though.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting element, these new pistons, that's for sure.
all right, and I think that's pretty much it for all the questions. Crane Man did, I guess there was another one. Could the footings be for test pours?
I don't know what he means by test pours. I mean, I feel like with the amount of constructing that they do out here, I can't imagine them needing any kind of like test pour. I don't know. Um, I guess I'd have to get a better understanding of what he means by that.
All right, and that was it for Massey's. I guess we can move on to Sanchez.
Cool. One thing I guess I should mention, I'm not sure if this was covered last week when I was gone, but it does look like they've made some progress connecting these tanks, these three tanks over here. And it's kind of interesting how long that has taken, because these have been here for quite a while now. But definitely making some progress on that. It still looks like they got a ways to go to. I mean, we can't even really tell which direction it's going to go yet. So right now, it's completely separate from the rest of the cryo lines, which basically allow. Let me back out a little bit here. These three tanks and these three tanks to feed both test stands. So yeah, I mean, the way this is set up, it almost looks like this may be exclusively for testing items over here. But again, I mean, it's really tough to say that with how it's currently set up. I do think it's possible that it may end up just stretching over here. Let's see.
Yeah, I'd say that's the direction it'll probably go eventually.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like these are two pumps that are sitting right here. Um, and with the way that they're sitting there, it kind of looks like these lines may feed into the back of the pumps. I'm not sure if that's how these are supposed to work, though. it's kind of weird the way that's set up there. Wish we had some drone shots of it, but unfortunately we're not able to fly drones over here anymore. So yeah, that's unfortunate. But one thing I want to mention, I guess, before we move over to the Sanchez site is that they do have another footing over here. So it looks like they're going to be putting, I'm guessing this compressed gas canisters will probably end up going here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was, I think, yeah, that was actually the last thing. So yeah, one thing that I skipped over, but yeah, I guess let's go ahead and move over to the Sanchez site. And we can go ahead and start over here on the right side where they are making some really good progress on the ground fabrication building. So I'm going to have to bring in some ground images of this as well, because I think maybe we'll be able to, I believe they had the pizza oven door installed on the front of this, on the front of the building. So as you all can tell, they've gotten the main structure, at least the structural steel, completed. So they do still need to do all the paneling on it, and it looks like they've done completed most of it on the first lean-to as well. So just waiting on the second half of that to be completed, and then guessing they'll probably get started on the actual paneling here soon. There is some paneling laying over here. The one thing about this is that, as far as I could tell, when they were deconstructing this, the roofing and side paneling was one of the only things that they weren't able to reuse. I didn't see piles of that sitting near the building when they deconstructed it, so they may have actually had to like reorder the components to do that. So it looks like most of it, or a small portion of it, sitting over here though already. And let me go ahead and see if I can find a ground image of that.
I just want to say a massive thank you to SpaceX for facing the entrance towards the road.
Well, you know, the thing about that is that there's still there's still that big container wall out there, you know, so I don't think we'll actually be able to see inside of there very well. Well, yeah. I mean, unless you're viewing it from this angle, which, as you can see here, the garage door, the pizza oven door, has been lifted in place already.
Well, there's one solution to that. You just get a trampoline and you just keep jumping up and down on it, taking photos of inside the building.
Yeah, I'm sure that standing in front of it, like if on the back of a truck or something, may be able to see over that wall, but those shipping container walls are pretty tall. So yeah, definitely making fantastic progress on this.
Yeah, and it's nice to see something permanent going on in that area after all this time as well.
Very true. Yeah, they've you know, kind of repurposed what's in this area multiple times. So they've you know, initially we're just storing a bunch of unused material here. Then they actually, I think they constructed stairs for the first mega bay over here at one point. Then they went back to storing random stuff here, and then they brought um, the rental yard for United Rentals over here. Their maintenance yard was moved over here, and now we have an actual permanent structure. So yeah, that's interesting progress for the Sanchez site. I'm really wondering what we'll see happen with the rest of it once they finish up with the Mega Bay construction. I think we'll see another project start in here soon.
Yeah, I'm sure at some point later on down the line, they will reach a point where they can start putting more permanent structures in Sanchez rather than just using various areas for pre-assembly.
Yeah, let me grab another image over here. So move us over to the a little bit more north. So as y'all can tell, they are nearing completion with most of the superstructure of the Mega Bay. So all of the steel piles of steel are slowly dwindling away. And these are the last two sections. The remaining two are actually already lifted in place, or the previous two were already lifted in place. So these are the last two that need to be finished. And I think the level 5 section 2 was lifted this morning. So yeah, they're moving super quick on that. And one thing I was expecting to see, which we have not yet, is for those bridge cranes to arrive. And usually you can kind of tell when those things are about to occur because they'll have to like start clearing space for it. But as of right now, there really is nowhere for them to go. I believe they probably could fit in here, especially if they move, get rid of these frames because they'll no longer be needing those for now. But yeah, I was expecting those to show up last week, and that didn't happen. So still on the lookout for those. In my opinion, I think they're late. But moving on, we have these new frames down here, which, man, these are very, very interesting. I really have no clue what's going on with these. This first one right here, I think we took some measurements on this, and it was approaching 12 meters in diameter. So a little bit wider than the 9-meter transport stands. I'm really curious what this is going to end up being. I have a feeling it may actually be related to structures for the inside of the mega bay. And if that's the case, it's a little bit different as far as I know from what is in the first mega bay. So it may suggest that there's different functions that will be happening inside of the two buildings instead of them being identical for identical purposes. But Jake or Nate, do you have any thoughts on that?
I've been pretty out of the loop with this, but yeah, the first time I saw this thing, it sort of reminded me of a mini OLM almost. But yeah, there's certainly some interesting projects going on here. And yeah, I think what you were saying about the Mega Bay just now, it could be related to that. Could be another new style of turntable of some kind. But yeah, it's certainly a interesting area to keep an eye on at the moment.
Yeah, I've been kind of looking for other components that look like they may go on top of this down here, but haven't really seen anything so far. But it looks like they're about to construct another one. But this one will probably be a little bit different. It's actually seems it's gonna be maybe twice as tall.
Yeah.
It actually
It's
makes me wonder uh, if they'll be used together. And one thing I did consider, which seems highly unlikely. If you needed something to, like, let's say you wanted to lay a booster or a ship down if you were going to transport it on a barge or something like that. Like, that's one thing I considered. Some sort of adapter that would, or a lifting jig that would allow you to rotate it on its side. But I just can't imagine them doing anything like that. It's just the only thing I could really come up with so far.
it's worth mentioning as well. There's a lot of white pillars there that look like they could go on the structure on the left.
Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are there some more that I'm missing down here?
No, but there is more sections right near the blast deflectors, just built down a bit further. That could be connected to the new structure on the right. See them all, the asset all piled in
Yeah,
front
these
there.
look very similar
Quite a
to the
few
ones
more.
over here. Very curious. Yeah, I'm guessing we'll see them start to assemble this here within the next few days. I'm a question I'm wondering is if these, the one over here, I think it was built on top of. I was gonna say normal pipe stands, but I'm looking at the footings. It doesn't look like pipe stand footings. It looks very similar to these, and these actually seem like they're going to be part of the structure.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if these two structures are actually going to be connected together at some point. That's something I'm waiting to see.
Yeah, this is just like the one at the um, Massey site. I guess we're gonna have to kind of wait. to see what it ends up being. Do we have any ideas from the chat? I was kind of scrolling through it and didn't see if I see somebody asking if it could be used for Pad C on the suborbital site.
Probably not, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
don't they? And they already have a. This is what was originally expected to be test stand C is right here. There was a lot of pieces missing from it now, but if they wanted to build another test stand, we already really have that ready to go. I think they've like kind of moved on from that idea now that they have the Massey's test site. Let's see. I'm looking in the chat again just to see if any other ideas in here. Hydraulic looks like
Yeah, I definitely think this will be booster connected. I'm just not sure in what kind of way just yet.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. I was looking for the curved sections that would join these together, and I think this is maybe the first one that I can see right here, but there's only one. And this actually looks more like the ones that are on this side, but there's clearly going to be more vertical pieces on this one than there are on this, so tough to really say on that. But yeah, let's move on, I guess. So what else do we have going on here? They are constructing more stairs for the integration tower. We did see last week or this week one of the staircases. I think it looked very similar to this one. Actually, ended up getting moved out of the launch site, and then they ended up bringing it back. So I'm not sure if that's this one right here, or if that
Yeah,
one.
I think we've actually got a ground shot of one leaving Sanchez or going into Sanchez, I think.
There's another one in the bottom right of the photo too that definitely has that Boca patina to it.
Oh, yep. It was kind of dirty looking, so I didn't notice it at first.
Yeah,
Huh.
and I'm still curious to see if this is actually going to go all the way up the tower or only up to the QD arm level.
Yeah, I think it's long overdue. Like that was one of the things I expected to see, like towards the when they first started constructing the tower. I thought they were almost like legally, like as far as regulation purposes go, they needed to have stairs in that building, just like they do with the Mega Bay. Because I mean, if you get trapped up on the top of the tower, there's really not a lot of ways of getting yourself back down if the elevator gets stuck up there. So. So let me grab another image so we can move a little bit more to the north again. Not much happening over here in the middle of the site. And same thing at the inventory tent. It's kind of just, storing inventory.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning as well, they've still got that booster transport stand sitting there from KSC, which we should probably expect to see being finished up soon, just a little bit lower down.
Oh yeah, this one. Sorry, I got a little bit confused between the two of those. Yeah, they haven't started this one yet, and it is possible that they may not need it right now, because they still
Yeah,
have. Don't they have an extra one still?
I think they might all
Uh,
be used now, I think.
Yeah, I believe you're right. Um, and with Booster 9 launching soon, I guess they'll end up having another one. But I don't know if
Yeah.
Booster 13, or sorry, which one? So we have 10, 11, 12
And
is,
then we got 12 is the one that's still in two halves in Mega Bay 1, and that will need a transport stand. It'll need that one by the inventory tent there, unless Booster 9's completely gone before then and freed up that transport stand.
yeah. I mean, Booster 11 got finished way faster than Booster 12, so I'm thinking they may possibly be holding off on completing that until they launch Booster 9, but only because they have not made any progress with actually finishing this. But when we look over here, there is some interesting stuff going on with booster. So let's see. We got booster 4.
Yep.
Kill it.
Booster 10.
Yeah, that's 10. Yeah, that's 10.
That's 10.
And then 11.
Yeah. But it's interesting the fact that they moved Booster 10 back to the build site, but then didn't take it to one of the bays. They actually moved it back to the Rocky Garden. I found really interesting.
Yeah, I noticed them set up these tents earlier in the week, and I was kind of trying to figure out what's going on here, but it almost looks like they're just blocking off so you can't really see underneath it. I can't really kind of figure out what's been going on down here because they don't have any like scaffolding or anything on the actual transport stand.
The holes that they added to the skirt of 9, how high up the skirt are they? Could they get to those with just the normal walkways on those stands?
Are you talking about the
I
valves, the vents that they have on there?
Yeah, the valves they added.
Yeah, I think it's high enough.
As far as we've seen, they don't have those on 10 and 11 yet, do they?
They do not.
No.
Okay.
They
So
also
we've got some work to do on these.
Yeah, and they've done some work on 10's FTS also since it's been sitting out there.
Yeah, let me see if I have some good ground images. From there, I'm gonna scroll through these in the background to see if I got some.
It's just odd though because they're doing this work at the Rocky Garden, even though Mega Bay 1's only got 2 halves of a booster in it. Unless maybe they're just doing a lot of upgrades to the inside of Mega Bay 1.
I'm about to say they've been definitely working. Grover's in there with his lattice boom. They've been doing a lot of work of some sort inside of Mega Bay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've seen jib cranes being installed inside of Mega Bay 1.
Can't really see the tents back there from this angle.
And when you look at that, it's a concrete truck blocking the view a bit.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we should definitely mention, let's go ahead and talk about the actual Starship action that we've had this week. So as most of you all know by now, Ship 15 has been murdered. So this was the last aerial that we'll ever have of Ship 15. They had connected to it early in the week. This was on Wednesday. So at this point, I believe they were preparing to cut it in half. And as of right now, they have already completed that, and most of it has been scrapped. So going back to those ground images, we were able to see that tank section of Ship 15 sitting here. I don't know. That was a very sad day. I was kind of surprised that they did that. One of the things that I've been thinking is, it doesn't really make a ton of sense as far as like, let's say they need another transport stand for Ship 30 or something like that. This transport stand, I don't think can be used on Ship 30. This is the older design, so it's possible that they just need this position for, I thought for Ship 28, but I believe when Ship 28 moves back, we should end up seeing it on the engine install stand right over here. This is an interesting angle. Hold on. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I came back from my little trip away for a week, it was quite a shock to see that 15 had gone. It's not something I was expecting at all.
Yeah, they cut it down pretty quickly and almost unceremoniously. But one thing that we have seen, they started like taking off some of the tiles in a pattern around like this, and I don't think we have images of this, or maybe I can find it from Chief from the What About It channel. He got some pretty good images of them cutting those pieces out, so it like almost seems like they're keeping some sort of like a trophy. You don't scrap the entire thing. At least they have something to look back on, like a little memento. Let me see if I can find that really quick.
Memorialize it.
Yeah, I do wonder where they'll
And
end up
Jack.
putting this. Hello, Jax. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, everybody. I am here now.
So here we go. Let's see. This is another angle of this showing them as they were. I think they had already cut out that section. You can see the cut marks around here, and then
Yeah.
shortly after this, they ended up lifting it off. This will be
Yeah.
really
Anyone got a supersized Christmas tree to put that on?
Yeah, this is what are your thoughts on this, Jax?
Well, yeah. I'm not very sentimental with these vehicles, so the amount I care is dwindling. But it's 15 was an easy vehicle to scrap. If they need space in the garden to send 25 back for flight readiness preparations or what have you, you don't need to deal with a heat shield. You don't need to deal with all of the extras. 15 is a very simple ship, and that could be as simple as why it's been scrapped. There's still some historical milestones with it, but those milestones are going to get passed over very, very quickly in this very rapid program. Now, they did keep, or at least they have set aside 3 of the flaps. One of them had almost the entire interface of it cut off, and they gave the pieces to some of the employees at SpaceX, and that one's been thrown in the scrapyard. But it does seem like the other 3 flaps are just sitting on the ground in the rocket garden, and maybe they'll be kept similar to serial number 8's flap.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm wondering if they'll end up putting those on display somewhere here, or sending them somewhere else to be on display.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to say the least. I have a feeling we're going to see 25 roll back to the production site soon enough. But
That is
it's
a
hard.
good point, because they have to finish up the all the tiles and stuff on 25, and when they did that on ship 24, they did it over here. So I guess that could be a reason to clear up one of these stands, because right now they have ship 20, which they could get rid of as well too, but they also have ship 29, which should be finished up construction soon, right? So I imagine they'll need a place to put that while they're constructing ship 30. So I mean, do you think ship 20 might end up getting scrapped next? I mean, right now we haven't really seen them make any moves to start doing that.
I wouldn't be surprised if 20 was scrapped next, but we'll have to wait and see. Like, they haven't started scrapping it or anything, so yeah, it's just steel in the end. They don't mean much. Because 26 is in the garden now. It took 27's position, which means the engine stands free. The rocket garden's changing. Like, it's reconfiguring quite a lot.
Yeah, I think we got used to it kind of having those staples in there that everybody recognized, and now, as you said, things are definitely changing. It'll be interesting to see how this continues to develop over the coming weeks. I mean, for one, I'm surprised they don't have a second engine install stand over here. I was really expecting that to happen right in this location, but we haven't seen anything, them begin to set up anything there yet. But yeah, I mean, so when ship 28 comes back, they'll start installing those engines over the next week, or not over the next week, but whenever it comes back. And beyond that, are we expecting any more testing? Like, do you think ship 29 is ready to move for testing soon?
I don't think it's ready quite yet. they still need to get both aft flaps on it, and it depends on how they're gonna play this. With 28, they waited to complete the entire heat shield before they rolled it out. 29, they barely started. So if they wait, we're probably talking quite a while longer, at least a few weeks. But if they leave the heat shield until the end, it might not be as long.
Plus, there's not really a major need to actually have 29 ready just yet. Anyway, they've still got plenty of other vehicles to keep them occupied for the time being.
We had a question on this. Some Steve Silver now is asking, could that piece that they were cutting out be for training purposes for new people to learn? And I guess I can answer that real quick. We saw the training pieces back over at that other building, the white one from the mudflats. I don't know if y'all remember that one time that we captured that. Oh, it's not in this gallery, but it was a while back. I think that's what they use for training. This one's probably going to be for a souvenir or to place it on a wall or an earring for like a troll or something.
Yeah, I think I remember what you were saying. It's outside of tent 4, and I think it was flap aero surfaces. I think they were using for heat shield tile practice.
But yeah, that's the only question we have right now. Hey Zach, do you want to show the footage of them breaking apart that heat towel or
Yeah, I can do that.
doing? And in the meantime, I don't know, Indian sir, do you want to get some donations? We got quite a few that came through.
Actually, Nate's going to take care of that.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do it for y'all today. So let's see. And if I go over some that were previous, I apologize. We have John Dopker donated 5 memberships to Carl West, Garth Buse, Colin, Peter Hogberg, and Scott S. Steve Colts donated $1.99 and said a couple of bucks for the cause. Yadsta donated $5 and an SN15 Memorial Fund. JK Video donated 10 with no message. John Dopker also donated $20 and said fuel and a sunny snacks. Love you, RGV. John Macklin donated at $49.99 and said, could they build high bays on opposite side of Star Factory? Great job. So that is a question. What do you think, y'all? Could they build any high bays, mega bays on the far side of Star Factory? Would that be beneficial in any way?
Uh,
I
I don't think they have room for that.
Yeah, I think they're going to be pushing up to housing and other things by the time they're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much my same thought as well. It didn't seem like a very viable area for buildings like that.
All right, I'll continue. Jim Cavett donated $10. Said, hope this will help for a sunny hydration. Thanks, RGV and friends. John Dopker also donated $10 more and said, before I head back to work, just want to say to Mauricio, heckin' good shots for the deluge test yesterday. Amazing job you do. Los Asos Bob did a super sticker for $10. And Vornada did $5. In my opinion, the only ship that is worth being memorialized is the first one that makes it to orbit and survives re-entry. And I think that catches us up on our donations.
Yeah. That ship is going to end up at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. Or wait, actually, sorry, not the Gulf of Mexico. Which ocean is that? Is that the Pacific Ocean?
That would be
it. Yeah, Pacific. We hope it'll reach there.
It'll be a very, very, very long time, I feel like, until we see a ship return after a launch. If I had to guess, it's going to be way past ship 34, which is the first one that or the last in line that we've seen so far, sections for. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a very long time. We haven't seen any moves to put landing legs or additional hardware for catching ships, which honestly I still don't believe in yet.
I
very easily, but yeah. Really quickly, let me show this clip while I have it paused on the screen. So this is y'all can see them removing the TPS tiles right here, and this really gives you an idea of how fragile these things are. If we didn't already know, it looks like he was attempting to pull it off the way they're designed to, I guess, by pinching the clamp points. Sorry, and was unable to do that and ended up breaking it off.
He just digs right in. Wow.
Yeah, all up in there.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I thought this entire time they drilled those holes. I never realized it was just done with pliers like that.
Heat, great. Anything else, not so much.
What do y'all think they're doing here? They just eyeballing it where the pins are supposed to be at, or what?
This keeps going to my next video in line. I think so. I mean, he probably just knows where they are because you're just comparing it to where the adjacent ones are. So, I mean, being a heat tile technician, they probably have enough experience to just eyeball it and know exactly where it's at, I would say.
And this isn't the typical way that they remove the heat tiles. Typically, they use whatever they have available. Like, what did we see them using last time? A forklift or something?
They just scrape them all off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite a sight to see.
All right, let me move back over to those aerials. And sorry, Mauricio, did we have more questions on Sanchez?
No, that was it. That's all we have for Sanchez. We can, if you want to move on to the build site, that's we're good to go there.
Cool. Yeah, let's go ahead and move over to the build site then. All right, so I guess I'll just address the Mega Bay really quick, and then we'll see if Jax has anything he wants to add about the other activities of the build site this week. So yes, this was taken on Wednesday, and y'all can see that down here they had 2 sections ready to be lifted, and well, I guess before they even did this, they had to lay down the crane. So they laid down the LR11,000. I think it was a few days before this was taken, and they added the extension onto it in order to lift these pieces. So as of now, these 2 sections are both in place, and they're moving super quick. Let's take a look on the other side over here. They're still making really good progress on the stairs. I'm actually kind of surprised they haven't started to lift these in place yet. Last time, they waited until they started to construct the roof before they started lifting the first set of stairs in, and then the second set, they waited until the building was already complete. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do that differently this time around. And I guess we should also mention over here just a quick note. Again, we talked about this last week, but over here we can see the nose, or the common dome section, forward dome section of ship 27.
Yeah, you had the common dome bit right first time.
Right here.
And yeah, common dome on the right, and then forward dome on the left.
Oh yeah! Wow. Okay. I don't know how I got that mixed up because it's upside down.
That's why we call you Stage 0, Zach, and not Starship.
Yeah,
Zach.
Exactly. Yeah, so I believe most of these are. I wonder if they're still over here now, or if they've already finished or made more progress on scrapping these at this point. I'm not really sure.
They've probably been making space for all the 15 over there now, probably.
It was quite peculiar. They cut the tip off of Ship 27's nose cone, like a trophy or something. It's just the right above the liquid oxygen header tank they cut off. It was after this flyover. I believe the ground shots show it, but
Okay, let me see if I can maybe find that
Yeah,
in the background.
and interestingly as well, when they cut the tip off nose cone 31, they seem to hang on to that as well. So yeah, it's interesting to see why they keep these nose cone tips like that.
They're fun to have.
Hold on, let's see. Is this one right here?
Yeah, that'd be it. They just kind of cut the tip off. I mean,
is that just the first stage of scrapping it because they have all of the COPVs and all that stuff up there?
that's not what they usually do, no. At least generally what they'll do is they'll just go top down, start cutting it in pieces. So it's, or sorry, bottom to top, not top down. But I have no clue what they're doing. It's like a trophy or something. Maybe they need the tip for something, or I don't know.
Jax, have they done this before?
Not during scrapping. But given the amount of holes in this nose cone, I wouldn't expect anything other than scrapping.
Yeah, it looks like this scrapyard is getting very, very crowded.
White.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that nose cone tip sitting outside of 10-4.
Are the stairs right there, are they designed for concrete landings? Are they set up for pouring concrete?
What do you mean? Like,
a lot of times with those type of stairs, you'll see the landings will actually be concrete. They'll have the ribbed kind of metal, and they'll pour concrete over it. It just looks like you can see ripples in them. It's not of anything significant.
Yeah, these do look like corrugated panels right here.
Yeah.
So, I'm guessing
it looks like
need to pour concrete on all of these before they can actually lift them in place. So that would be a reason, I guess, why they haven't started installing them yet.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
With
good,
the
observation.
with the stairs for Mega Bay 1 like that, with concrete on the landings?
I don't believe so. I think the stairs for Mega Bay 1 were very different than this.
Yeah, I think so as well. All right, let's move over to the actual ring yard. And Jax, what do we got going on over here this week?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to get going with the most interesting stuff because that's what I like to do, keep it concise. There's a dome just to the upper right of your cursor, and it's beside the nose cone down by tent 3. Yeah, so that dome right there, it's one of their new flatter domes. Woohoo! But it's capped over and it has a flanged pipe sticking out the top of it. Generally, a part like that is for a test tank. So I don't know. Keep an eye out for that. That's. I would bet that it's a part for a test tank. I'm not sure about if it's a top or a bottom dome. If it was the top, it could be the flange could be to attach a vent stack. If it was the bottom, it could be to fill it. So it's hard to say.
I was trying to find another angle of that over here. Maybe this one will show it. So you're talking about the cap on here?
Yeah, so right in the center you can see a little pipe sticking out. It's kind of hard to see, but I'd expect that we'll see it get sleeved with something somewhat soonish. At least I'd hope it will. Don't know what it's for though.
So do you have any? I was kind of talking about this earlier. Are there any other test structures that we're kind of expecting to see soon, other than the hot staging and payload section?
Yeah, so Mauricio did catch a label yesterday in the ground photos that he zoomed in on, and it's a second booster forward dome. So they had the hot stage load head piece that we've talked about previously, and there's another one in the ring yard right now that he caught the label on right there. And the label's in the ground photos, but essentially what it says was it's a developmental piece. It's the old Booster 14 top section, and I can't remember exactly what the designation was. It was hard to read. I think the consensus was Booster 14.1, but it was really hard to read. So that would be another one.
Is that the one that's got stringers going all the way down to the bottom, or is that a different test article?
This is a different one. Yeah, so it's a different one. It's for something else, and I'm not quite sure what it's for. No, if it's booster 14.1, I feel like it's testing something related to Super Heavy rather than Starship. But if we misread the label and it, because like I said, it's a faraway label. It's hard to make out letters and numbers. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe the people in chat have some ideas about some other things that could be that SpaceX could be qualifying or testing out apart from the whatever the hot stage load head component is. Yeah, it's
Do you
peculiar.
think maybe they would? So one thing I kind of mentioned earlier, the can crusher being retrofitted with hydraulic pistons that are kind of facing diagonally. Do you think it would be necessary to like pull down on this on the forward dome in order to simulate the force of the Raptor engines acting on it?
The point you brought up was that the lack of pressure, which was what you generally be experiencing at that point in flight, wouldn't be there. Maybe you could simulate that to some degree. I'm not sure. It is an interesting one though, because if the firing surface is braced on the forward dome, which I've long thought it will be, not that we've seen anything, it just kind of made sense in my opinion. The forward dome's going to be experiencing definitely some pretty serious forces. So yeah, whether it's pulling down from inside or somehow fabricating something to push down from the top, it's something to consider.
And do we know what happened with that? The other actually reinforced the load head.
Yeah, that one's disappeared. So that was the one. It was labeled Booster 12. It was on one of the streams a couple of weeks ago, and it came back. It went into Tent 1. It came back out. Had all the stringers. It had some. Interestingly, they added some hardware for the interstage clamps, which it didn't have beforehand. Which almost makes me wonder if this new a hot staging ring will interface through the clamps. I'd speculated that it wouldn't, but I'm wrong a lot. So it'll be interesting to see that came out and it seemed to move towards 10.3-ish.
Yeah.
It's inside now. It's 10.2 or 10.3, I'd say.
Yeah, it went behind the ring yard and disappeared.
Yeah. Then speaking of test articles, you can see ship 24-2 outside the mid bay, and that was stacked onto its bottom ring. It's a 7-ring tall test article that should be verifying the payload bay of Starship, which I guess is debuting on ship 28 now because 27 kicked the bucket.
Yeah, so I mean, they should be pretty quick with getting that welded on there. I wouldn't be surprised if it's already done. When did they lift that on there? I guess they were doing it. They were preparing for it right here.
Yeah, it was lifted later that afternoon, I believe. So it's been what the flyover was Wednesday.
Yeah,
it's been a few days then. So yeah, it's probably finishing up. We don't know.
Sorry.
We don't know quite what is left to be done on it. We can only guess. I think they're going to be reinstalling this sliding door panel back onto it, which is going to be just another operation that's probably going to take a day or two. So we'll see. Maybe they've already done it. It's hard to be sure.
Yeah, that's a question I got. Does it really matter if it's a robotic weld or not? Or is that going to really affect anything with the structural testing?
It'd be nice to use the robot. I think they'd agree with that. I don't think it matters that much in this case. They'll have to put in their good work. It'll have to be the kind of weld they'd used to do on a flight-worthy vehicle, but
yeah.
I don't think it matters that much. The primary concern of the test is going to be the opening in the side. Yeah. Ship 30 began stacking this week, and that is good. Out of the
Don't have any of
20s.
those sections out here right now, right?
So the one section in the yard for ship 30 right now is kind of the top left of the ring yard from this photo. So that's the part of the oxygen tank, and ship 31's is right below that. You can see the identical section.
Right here.
Right there, yeah. So,
I feel like those are going to go pretty quickly. I mean, the ships have been getting way faster, right?
when they want to. It just depends on if they need to go fast, they will. If they don't need to, it'll go a bit slower than we've seen. 30's forward dome's already been moved into the high bay. It came out, it was probably minutes after Mauricio flew over. And that is still yet to be stacked, even though it's been a few days.
Isn't this it right here?
That's the payload bay below the so the forward bulkhead, the 3-ring barrel, that's since been moved
I couldn't
in.
even see the nose cone on there. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, 30 is a cool vehicle. I'm excited for it. I guess I don't know what else to do. Do we have any questions just right now pertaining to the build site?
Let me check real quick. We don't have any questions directly to this, honestly.
Cool.
I don't know if you want to give it a few seconds for people to... Okay, here's the first one. Is SpaceX considering a blast shield that would protect the forward dome and other components from the engine exhaust?
I would say this is one of the few things in this program we could be certain about. If the forward dome isn't shielded, and almost even more important than that is the hardware on top of it, which is critical for the recovery and descent of the booster. So that's your grid fin motors, computers, batteries, all that stuff. That's all up in the inner stage. If that gets torched, the booster isn't coming back. So that needs to be protected pretty heavily.
I'm interested to see how they provide access to all that stuff as well. If they put a protective shield over the top, I guess it'll just be a hatch in the side of a ring.
Yeah,
I guess here's another. Sorry,
I was going to say I thought about it too, because the hot fire ring is basically going to be around a ring tall, so it almost feels like it's going to have to be a hatch, and then another hatch possibly in whatever they use as a shield. It's going to be interesting to see how that works.
I mean, there's just certain things that I see Santi saying they could move some stuff, but there's only so much you can. The grid fin motors have to be with the grid fins. That's not avoidable. If you fire Raptors at them, your grid fins aren't moving. So I'm sure there's some workarounds they could do, because you need to keep the vehicle light at the same time, and that's sort of the conundrum you run into. You want to put some heavy blast shielding onto it, but you do have to make sure the booster is still in a usable state.
It's how they're going to protect the clamp system. That's the part I'm interested to see.
we have a couple more questions. Several people asked, what is the red coating in the ring sections?
It's, railings on the scaffolding, or netting, I guess, because you have to remember it's deceiving, but that you're standing 8 meters in the air right there, so you don't want to fall.
Yeah, you'll find they're using that red netting in a lot of places around Starbase now. It seems to be something they've started doing a lot more of recently.
Here's another question from Z. Could S30 get 6 RVACs, because we haven't seen it in the aft sections in a while?
We have seen 30's components, and we've been through the photos at least up to 33. It's all still the 6 engines. if I'm being honest, I wouldn't expect to see that until 2025 or later. That's my speculation. I don't think it's something that's going to happen remotely soon. But maybe, well, I guess when I say dates, there's a difference between when they start being produced and when they actually fly. Vehicles have like a 1 year lead time on them. So it's, I don't know. I don't expect something with 9 engines to fly in next year. That's my guess. Maybe people in the chat disagree. I'm fine with that. Yeah, I'd like to hear some other opinions here.
I agree with that. I'm not really expecting to see the extra 3 airbox added anytime soon either. I think that's very much a long-term, later on down the line thing.
Here's another question from Crane Man. What about putting heat tiles inside the hot staging ring to protect the top of the booster? Fragile, right?
Yeah, that's a big
Very
no-no.
fragile. That video Zach showed earlier, I mean, he was just using needle nose to pop right through them.
Yeah, thermal protection tiles are a pretty interesting thing because they're able to withstand such intense high heating conditions. And in that case, they would be quite suitable for that purpose. But when it comes to mechanical loading on them, they don't hold up quite so well, and they break very, very easily. You just have to look at them and they start to break. So it's
Could you use a material similar to what's used on the bottom of the Dragon? You know, because it's ablative, and of course the way it cools and what it's attempting to do versus what they want to do with Starship during reentry is very different. But is it a more durable material when it comes to that shock of those engines firing?
Now to that question, I'm going to say I do not know. I'm not quite familiar. I believe it's the Pika X type of material they use. That's like the heat shield they've developed. I don't know because I don't feel like they would have designed it to withstand what it doesn't need to withstand on Dragon 2. And atmospheric reentry, you're not necessarily experiencing the kind of just straight on mechanical forces pressing onto it as firing 6, 9, whatever Raptor engines into it. Not to say, like I said, I don't know if it can or can't. I don't know what it can withstand. It's just, I don't know. You get into some interesting material sciences there, and they have quite a team at SpaceX.
You know, I guess I have a question. So, I probably need to go back and rewatch one of these Falcon 9 launches, but when the second stage ignites, it's still pretty much lined up with the inner stage, right?
On Falcon,
Pretty much,
it is. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's got a few, I don't know, let's call it like 10 to 20 meters of separation before it ignites, but it's still relatively close. So I wonder, you know, I wonder if they have to do any extra protection on the top of Falcon 9 interstage in order to protect from that. Because, I mean, if they constantly fire those engines into the interstage, and it seems to do just fine. So maybe it's not as big of a deal as we think it is.
Yeah, and it might not be. You're right.
I think one of the things we forget too is it's going to fire in a vacuum, and so the actual plume is going everywhere. It's not just going to go straight down like we see during launch and in the atmosphere. And so there's a lot of variables I think that we probably don't fully understand when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. I'm excited to see what they do. My speculation around the hot staging, I haven't been doing it as much as others. I'm just want to sit back and see what happens. So it'll be interesting to say the least.
Yeah, it's something I'm pretty excited to see develop as well. I mean, I didn't think we'd even be looking at something like this a few months ago. And then, yeah, one day it's just suddenly announced that hot staging was going to become a thing. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to see.
Awesome. Well, Mauricio, unless we have any more questions, maybe I'll move on to the Star Factory.
Yeah, that's fine. While you move over there, just one last question for Jax. SpockX asked, "What is so special about Ship 30? Why do you say it's so cool?"
I guess I don't know. The heat shield tiles are quite nice on it. They've been getting better at that. They've changed up some of their radio antennas on it. So like the I think it's technically 10 antennas on the nose cone of the ship. There's five or six on each side. I can't remember if all six are actually those antennas, but there's tiles on the nose cone. So those are gone on Ship 30. And the antennas have been moved elsewhere, which is a pretty interesting change because it reduces the manufacturing complexity for the nose cone. I just think I find some things cooler than other people would find them because of the way they're trying to make the manufacturing more efficient. I find that interesting.
I did see some other questions in the chat as well just now. If you go back a few images, Zach, to the ring yard again, to that ground shot, people are asking what that. Yeah, people are asking what that section was with the black tarp on top. That's a booster thrust section. And you booster header tank sitting right underneath the black tarp. And I'm sure Jax could probably tell us what number that's likely is.
Yeah, so that's booster 13. It was outside last week and it didn't have the tarp on it, but I think they figured we probably shouldn't let the rain get all over the plumbing or something to that effect. Maybe they've decided that it should be covered to not let photos inside or whatever. But yeah, it went inside, got tarped, and came back out. It's kind of funny.
I think it's for the rain, honestly.
Yeah, I think so as well. But
yeah, I guess
When was the last time it actually rained at Starbase, though? I feel like it's been several weeks.
Well, it started to rain just a little bit when I was out there on Friday, which is yesterday. So yeah, it's that time of year already. August, we usually get a lot of rain. August, September, hurricane season too.
I mean, there was artificial rain at the launch site yesterday.
Yeah, I was about to say, is that what you're talking about? Cool. Well, I guess with that, we can move over to the Star Factory.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so we have tons of progress on the Star Factory. They are just cooking away on this roof over here. So as y'all can see, they've kind of made it, I would say, roughly 3/4 of the way across the building. One question that I've seen a lot, and I've even had myself, is whether or not, or how long it's going to be until they move over at least to the edge of this foundation. And, looking at this, you can definitely see that, well, I'm not 100% certain if this is the mounting tabs because it should be a little bit further down here. I actually don't think that is what they are, and I don't see them over here at all either. So right now, it almost looks like they are not going to be extending it that far over. I don't know if you guys would agree with that.
Yeah, I think they won't connect those two buildings up until the new building on the right is actually ready for use. Yeah, I think that's when we expect to see that event occur.
Yeah, that's really weird though, because you would expect that even if that is the case, that you would at least still put the footings in there, right? But it doesn't seem like that's what's happening. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is a small chance that it may actually remain as two separate structures, although that would be kind of weird. I mean, I guess it's not that difficult to break all this out and install the those pieces down there. because it's really only along this line, I guess. And this is really tough to tell right here. It almost seems like there is one right there.
Go to your left from there, Zach. Look at the edge of the old building. That's a new dig, and that's vapor barrier. And it almost looks like there's an embed right below it also.
Right here.
Yeah, that's definitely
Yep.
new. Yeah.
Well, that's a good sign.
And then above it, you can see where they removed a bunch of the concrete, and that definitely looks like it has rebar in it also.
Right. I guess one thing to consider, the bridge cranes are probably not going to move past this point, right? So they may not need the same kind of support along the in the middle right here. So I wonder if just like stretching all the way to over here might work, because you're basically just creating a hallway. And yeah, you're right. So they did dig all of this. They broke all of this out. I'm not sure when they did that. So yeah, I guess it's possible that they could be preparing to do that right now. I mean, that would be interesting. I would kind of expect that the roof would go all the way over here before they even begin to break out that wall, because you don't want to have just an open wall out here when you're actually have construction going on or work going on inside. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be interesting to see how they do that next step. But it feels like they're preparing to do that right now. If that is the case, I didn't notice that until you said it, Nate. But shouldn't this be? I mean, a little. I guess you said it's right here, the embed.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Another thing that I've noticed, which is kind of odd, just the way that they switched color of steel as they moved on to this next section. So they went from gray steel to black, and they've got a ton of it just sitting here. Let me get a better image. They're got a lot of it just sitting down here waiting to be installed, and there was actually like 2 or 3 trucks sitting over here waiting to offload as well too. But yeah, I mean, they made some really good progress with the actual foundation of this week. So right now, I'm guessing the section will come next. But yeah, I think they've already moved all the way across on this already. Let me see if I can grab a ground picture to show that.
It's worth mentioning as well, those trucks you were looking at on the right just now, they may actually have beams on them for the factory bridge cranes. I think Chief caught photos of them the other day.
Yeah, that would make sense. I'll go back and look at those here in just a second. So we have some good ground images right here. These are a little close up, but you can see that they've started installing the outer walls as well. And then I don't know if these are new, these like tension bands that they're putting up right now. Can't tell if they're doing that now or if, yeah, I think he's up there installing those right now. But yeah, they put that wall on in just under a week, so that was pretty crazy how quick they moved on that. And as you mentioned, Jake, they've got the bridge cranes on site, or at least the part of them. The girders. They don't have the actual. Oh man, what's it called? Wow, what's the part in the middle called? The
Gantry? No. Yes.
no,
because it's a
The
bridge crane.
trolleys?
the trolley. There you
There
go.
we go.
That's just not an American word, so it's
It's teamwork.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, but like I said, they're making some really good progress on this. I don't know if we have any pictures backed out a little bit further. Let me see if I can find some.
While you look for that, that whole concrete area between the new and old Star factories new, and those are areas they left out purposefully.
Hold on, let me go to that area really quick and show what you're talking about.
So yeah, I guess they are getting ready for connection work then, maybe.
Are you talking about this area?
No, between the new one and the old one, all that concrete is new. It was all missing 2 flyovers ago. So they left out those sections right next to the new Star factory as they were pouring that concrete.
Okay.
Which has kind of been how they built these. They tend to leave the edges to when they get to them, and then they come back and pour them in.
Right.
I guess what we could see is the phase 1 and phase 2 connected there, and then maybe a doorway facing straight down between those two. Yeah, sort of that area, so they can still use the door on the end of phase 1 there for the time being until they get the rest of the factory properly built.
Yeah, and the interesting thing that I've noticed, if we move a little bit further down, so initially I was kind of wondering if they were going to extend this all the way out as far as it's supposed to go, but it looks like they've instead of only cutting this corner right here or this edge right here, they've gone all the way down. So I think it may be a while before we actually see them expand into that area. Like maybe it might even be like the last thing that they do. So as of right now, to me, it looks like they're not planning on extending that far yet.
It sort of looks as well like they might actually want to start building this end next, rather than just continue.
Oh, you cut
Yeah,
out there.
rather than just sorry about that. Yeah, so rather than just continuing straight down for the time being, they might start this end piece next, and then work their way up. Maybe maybe they want the high end of the factory ready for emptying tent 3 soon.
Yeah, that would make sense because then it would allow them to start on this section next. But yeah, I mean, I do wonder if we've seen signs that it will actually be as tall as we think it's going to be down here yet. Other than the, I guess, placement of the footings. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the way they end up doing this part. But yeah, I mean, they are still doing the last row of footings over here, and I think by the time we see the next flyover, they'll probably start doing the vapor barrier going down in this direction. So yeah, I'm guessing they'll move, like you were saying, from this way and join up in the middle. I feel like they did something similar on the Star Factory in Florida as well.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Yeah, I need to go back and review that though. But yeah, I don't know if there's much else to really cover over here on the Star Factory, other than those bridge cranes that we were seeing on the trucks over there, the bridge crane rails.
One of the things, the dog bone, that strange pour on the front of that bottom section of the Star Factory.
Where?
I don't know if you remember, it was like just a double area where they actually connected those two forms that are on the left side.
Yeah, it's basically right along the edge of the
Yeah, there are
concrete
tracks
slab at
there
the
that
top
makes
of
it look like it's going to have a
there we go.
3-section rolling door.
Tracks right here.
Yeah, it's harder to see
yeah.
this image, but we noticed them the other day, and I cannot remember what photo it was. It was of a different angle, and you had a little bit better idea of what was going on.
Yeah, basically it looked like 2 big footings with a long bit of concrete connected between them, from what I remember.
Yeah, you can kind of see that they've boxed out something right here on these two sides, so it could be related to the vertical supports for that door.
Yep.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, you're going to have to. I'm surprised they don't have. Well, I guess we haven't really seen on these sides yet, because they haven't really finished the groundwork here yet. But I would expect more openings to be alongside of here, into the other sections as well too. For some reason, I'm not as excited for the Star Factory, even though I know it means that there's going to be like, a much faster rate of production. It's kind of sad, that everything's going going to be so obscured. I mean, with there being no doorways on this side of the building, like we'll never see things moving in and out really.
Yep, they're going to be able to hide it all.
I'm sure they're excited
How much?
about that.
I was gonna say, how much does an X-ray camera cost?
Right.
I'm sure we can get one for Mauricio.
All right. Well, let me move us over to the village area.
While you do that, Zach, I'm going to read some donations and get
Okay.
caught up. We got James L., who donated $15. He said, "Rest in peace, 15." DJ Esmerald donated $50, or I'm not sure exactly what his currency is there, but anyway, he said, "How is everyone doing? Do you guys think B9 will be rolled back on the next closure tomorrow?" And I will comment on that if y'all are okay with that. They just moved some engine shielding on the Raptor stand, the Raptor removal stand. So I would guess B9 is going to be down at the launch site for time to come.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to move anywhere anytime soon either. I think they're going to want to at least fire a few engines at the new water system underneath first
Yep,
before they think about moving B9 back.
agreed. Varnado donated $5. Said, "Hot staging on a reusable system the size of Starship is SpaceX's most radical idea yet, and it sure is going to be interesting to see." And that gets us caught up on donations.
Awesome. Well, we have a really odd new addition going on over here in the I don't know what you want. This is the area that they were previously kind of storing all of the their spools of wiring and whatnot. So as y'all can see, they've started constructing a tent down here, and it is a really odd looking tent. So you can see that it has what looks like a hallway on the inside of it. So yeah, it's a two-section tent. There's several doors going into it, which is interesting because I mean, there's more doors on here already than there are on the inventory tent. So they've made some good progress getting all this up. I think. Let me run.
I don't know if that's a hallway though. I think that's just a shadow, no?
Is it? Because these look like it looks like the roof supports are going across right here.
You can see something coming down that makes me think it is not a shadow. Yeah, you can see little legs still coming down.
I don't suppose this is the start of a more permanent building for United Rentals, is it? For them to come back to this area again.
You know, I suppose that's a possibility. It doesn't look large enough for that, in my opinion. I mean, I guess you probably could drive things through these doorways. It's hard to tell how tall they are. I was thinking like almost like a food court area. I feel like they need one of those.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, I see what you mean.
How close is
height
it to
wise,
the
you
food
might.
trucks?
Let's see here. Not very. The food trucks are way over. Wait, in this little area right here. And that's not really that big. So I would imagine that maybe they want a larger like cafeteria type area. So that's the only real thing I can think of. Just with the way it's constructed.
Yeah.
It's like very, very light light gauge metal that they're using for the framework compared to any of the other tents that they built. And let me see if it looks more completed from the ground images.
But then again, if it maybe is a food court related thing, you'd probably think they'd build it over the food trucks down by the Prancing Pony. Would have thought.
I feel like they don't have enough room over there. And I'm just looking through these ground images, I don't see a good shot of that yet.
Well, I've got to admit, I'm reading some of the comments in the live chat, and they're not disappointing with suggestions for what this could be.
What do they got so far?
We got a party tent, we got a rec center, we got disco, we got a Viking longhouse, a beer tent.
I would think a rec center actually would make some good sense. And I finally got a good ground image of that. So yeah, they made a lot of progress since the flyover. Yeah, I mean, it just looks super temporary, in my opinion.
It's a pretty weird structure for sure.
And yeah, from this angle, you can kind of see that there is that hallway over there as well too. But yeah, beyond that, there's not a whole lot happening over here. Obviously, there's still the groundwork happening in the backside of the village, but I mean, it doesn't seem to be moving that quickly. I actually can't tell any real progress since 2 weeks ago when I was last on the show. And I
Maybe a
guess,
bit of groundwork. Yeah, maybe a bit of groundwork, but that's probably about it.
hey, we actually do have another booster transport stand.
Oh, yeah, but that's going to be used by 12, I think. And then after that, they're going to need another transport stand.
Yeah, I completely forgot this one was over here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're actually working on that stand by the grain yard, yeah, which is quite interesting.
yeah, we also saw them install a new bridge crane inside of here. So a few weeks ago, there was a bridge crane sections sitting outside of here, and they've been working to install that over the last week or so. And I believe they may be done with that. And I don't know if there's ground images that show that right now, but um, yeah, not a lot else happening over here. I think we may actually move over to the launch site, unless anybody has any questions that we haven't touched on.
Let's see here. There's a question. Won't they leave the wall up between the phase one and new building until the part has its HVACs installed to stop the factory getting overheated? In reference to the Star Factory.
Yeah, I guess I would expect that. Uh, the thing is, at least I'd have to go back and look at this. I don't remember seeing um, mounting points for that HVAC on this building, on this side of the building, which is interesting. We do see them in the sections right here for this middle part of the building. There's little squares that are there for most likely for HVAC equipment, but I don't remember seeing any of that on this part of the building. So that will be interesting to see if they end up doing that or not. You would think the entire building needs HVAC, but um, yeah, I mean, on that point, that is a big thing that will need to be done, I guess, before they open the side of the building up, is make sure that they're able to cool the entire thing at the same time. So, any
All
other
right, and
questions?
that's all the questions for the build site. We have a couple more already coming through for the launch site, so we might as well move on.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and start off at the suborbital tank farm, where we have ship 25 connected to the crane right now. And I think Jax was saying that uh, what was he saying, that they started doing something with the tiles up here?
They've been installing the tagline points down at the bottom of the ship, and they've also been installing new mounting points for more FTS on the methane tank of the ship as well.
Sorry, yeah. Like Jake said, it's kind of funny, the flight termination box, because if we go to the ground photos looking at the leeward side of ship 25, we can see that they've begun modifying the flight termination system. They actually did it last week, and nobody noticed. I had to go back and look at the photos, and I said, "Oh, look, there it is."
So this is the original box right here. And are you saying, so is this what's been added on?
Yeah. So the two housings running parallel to each other were where the charges went initially. Those are positioned over the common dome of the vehicle. So dome that separates oxygen and methane tank. Theoretically, you were supposed to blow a hole in the side and it would destroy the vehicle. It didn't. So they've added a third box on a ring on the methane tank, and they've done this on Booster 9 too. Essentially, what it looks like they're trying to do is just rip that ring just to try to unzip the tank, because those two charges didn't do it during Flight 1.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. They seem to be doing it on the methane side there, on both of those vehicles.
Yeah, why not also have it on the LOX side? That wasn't a good picture.
I think if you're successful in destroying the methane tank, LOX tank isn't going to last too long. Yeah, you're also... I'm wondering if you're trying to keep the explosions somewhat in one location to make like one big hole, to try to kill the vehicle. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of ways you could do this. There, flight termination systems. You just try to find the weak points, right?
Yeah. So when everything happened with the orbital test flight and we looked at the regulations, it's more or less to stop the vehicle, correct? It's not that's the whole purpose of the FTS, is to stop it from continuing on its flight. And I mean, if you don't want to make a massive explosion if you don't have to.
Yeah. So I think as long as you terminate thrust, it's at least a better outcome than what happened during the first flight test of Starship. It didn't leave the exclusion zone, which was good. In my books, it was still as big of the flight termination was as big of a failure as it could have been. It didn't do it in a timely fashion. That's horrendous. So as long as they can try to terminate the thrust, and they tried to terminate the vehicle, that should be good. And this I don't know, it's just more bombs, right? So
Yeah, I think that's the technical way of saying it, pretty much.
And you mentioned the taglines on the bottom down here.
Yeah, and there's ones on the other side as well in the heat shield.
Were these not already present before?
no, last week they weren't there. I checked.
So did they just not need it when they lifted it up here the first time?
No, they were there and then they pulled them. Then once they were pulled off, it did the static fire and whatnot. Now they're back.
Okay. Did they actually remove the whole, like, just the like kind of hook part right here, or
no? It's the whole.
They shaved the whole thing off.
It's like a threaded hole or something.
Okay.
Last week, I can't remember, Nate, did we talk about the engine shielding?
We tried to, but we didn't have a good picture of it, and we've got a great picture of it right now. Why don't you point it out?
Yeah, so if we look kind of above where those tagline things are, there are these pretty noticeable welds on the ship. Above there, it's kind of vertical. Yeah. So that's the frame piece for the engine shielding, because the engine shielding on the ship, there's this truss structure, I guess you could just say, that holds a bunch of steel panels in place, and they took all that off and they've put on new ones. So if you look closely at the weld, there's one area that's like the bottom half is darker of that vertical part. That darker bottom half was what the original mounts for those beams looked like, but now they've essentially doubled it in height and added these, I assume, lateral supports off to the sides, which are those 4 dots. If that's the case, the shielding they're putting on, or at least the bracing for the shielding, is twice the size. It's significantly more robust, which was kind of expected. I think the general assumption's been that they were replacing the shielding with something better suited to endure the heat loading during hot staging. And I'd say that's pretty damn good proof of it.
Yeah, and I mean, also during hot staging, you may have some like reflection of the, back up into the engine bay, right? Because I mean, most of it's going to come out the side of the side holes, but I'm assuming some of it, your exhaust gases would also reflect back upwards and kind of exert a force on the top of the engine shielding.
And there's a lot of sensitive hardware above it, so you got to make sure that the false ceiling is just make sure that it's all good, right? It's also possible that with the lessons they learned from Flight 1, they're strengthening up the isolation on the engines as well, because, well, I don't know, we never saw the ship in action, but maybe they wanted to strengthen that too, similar to how Booster 9 had it done.
We got a photo in live comms from Nick showing the difference on that section of the ship.
Okay, let me open that up really quick. Okay, yeah, so this is what the original mounting point looked like.
Looks kind of dinky.
Versus the new one.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot more going on there now.
Yeah, crazy that you catch those small little additions. So looking at the aerial view, though, we haven't seen any of that shielding return, right? It's still missing.
Well, there's some possible parts. I think it's all stacked up down by the berm, maybe. I was talking with Nick about some of it. They're kind of large beams that were brought to the suborbital pad that could be those new framework pieces for the shielding.
This?
Those might be some of them, yeah.
Well, those are pretty big.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to be sure. Like it's definitely not confirmed right now. It's just a bigger things brought near the suborbital site. I don't know what else they'd be for. They're giant though.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be very interesting to see that in the actual ship. I mean, this whole hot staging thing is such a massive job to do on 25. Like, I'm really just shocked that they would do that now, instead of waiting until the next launch. But man, I mean, yeah, I guess in my opinion, this is still, like, as you were saying earlier, probably the biggest holdup for the next flight. Minus the whatever regulatory issues they may have going, trying to get that license back. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I don't know if hopefully we'll get another upskirt picture of 24 one day, at least when it's being stacked onto the booster for the first time. Maybe we'll actually be able to see what they did under there a little bit. But yeah, that's some really interesting changes that they got going on there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Cool. Anything else on 25?
Not off the top of my head. How about Jake, Nate?
That's about the only big things I've seen recently.
Cool. Well, we will move over in that case to the orbital tank farm, and then we will talk about the test from this week, the full pressure test. We have some really good footage from Mauricio, so I know y'all have been waiting on that for since the beginning of the show. But let's see. At the orbital tank farm, they have slowly been repainting everything. So you can see over here that I believe the darker sections right here are the new paint. And in the ground images, we're able to see that even more on the other side. So I'll show that here in a second. But in the front side of the tank farm, they've added all of these racks for the conduit. And I think we may actually end up seeing them install pipework along there as well too. And so this conduit is more than likely replacing what was on the backside over here. So originally they had some, well, you can actually still see the pipe racks down here. And they had a bunch of conduit that was running alongside of that, and most of that was destroyed during the launch. So I think they just want to make sure that all of their electrical components are more protected. So now they're putting that on the front side of the tank farm. Ideally, they shouldn't really have any issues with with debris flying into the orbital tank farm again. But I guess it's good to be safe rather than sorry. But the other thing to consider here is that, you know, we'll probably see some major changes within the tank farm after the first launch, so they could just be planning ahead on that by moving everything up to the front side. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting to keep our eyes on. I'm going to go back to the front side. So a few weeks ago, they did have the fourth LOX pump sitting out here, which I've seen move around the site several times. They took it away and then it came back and they took it away again. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but I've been kind of hoping that we would actually see them install that other additional pump, but it doesn't appear that they have, or that they plan to. But interestingly enough, a lot of people have asked over the last few weeks if whether or not the three-phase power from Brownsville is activated at the launch site yet. And I think the cryo test of Booster 9 this week kind of shows that they've definitely got all of that stuff activated, because right now they only have this little tiny generator out here. So I do not believe they would have been able to load propellant onto the booster as quickly as they did without that. So yeah, I guess they've gotten all this up and running again, which is really good to see. One little interesting thing I've noticed down here, they seem to be setting up a little barrier wall right here for protecting the boxes down here, the electrical boxes. So, I don't know if we saw these get damaged at all during the launch attempt, but again, lots of additional protection that wasn't here before is what they're just trying to set up to protect all of their stuff. I mean, you don't want this to get hit by debris and end up becoming non-operational. So good to see them installing some additional protection over there.
I mean, yeah, ideally we don't want to see debris churned up everywhere again, but yeah, I guess it's good to protect against it anyway.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me that the fact they're going through and actually painting all these tanks, especially considering that they are probably end up going to get rid of some of them. So yeah, let me go ahead and show that from the ground actually before I forget. So ground images right here. Man, these things are ugly. Looks like 3 different shades.
Yes, looks a little funky with about 3 different shades of paint on there.
Yeah.
The old paint, the newer paint, and then the newest paint.
Yeah, it's weird, kind of just starting something and not finishing it, moving over to the to the other one. But yeah, I think by now they've gotten I think they've been doing this over the last few days as well too. So I think I saw this morning that they were actually up there painting again. So I mean, it's not going to make it look less ugly, but yeah, just one of those things. They're really painting pretty much everywhere right now, which we'll see here as we look at the orbital launch mount as well too. Got a lot of paint work happening over there, which is a really good sign. It means that we're getting close to the next static fire attempt. And yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at that.
There was one thing I did notice there was new pipework coming out the side of the fluids bunker. Which you probably have to,
Yeah, I saw that as well. It's really interesting because it's not connected to anything yet, so it seems like they've just constructed this section which still needs to be connected to something, and they got another little piece down here. So not
that
sure
makes
if
sense.
it's made to go inside of this building. I don't think it will fit in there, so probably related to something else out here. Yeah, I've also been looking to see if there's similar versions of this somewhere else. Because initially I was thinking that might be one of um,
It does
the
look very similar to that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it just doesn't look big enough to be used for that. So,
Yeah.
and it's slightly different. It's not quite the same shape. But yet more changes happening over at the suborbital tank farm. Um, Another interesting thing, I believe they've installed a bunch of lights on the back side of here, point at the orbital tank or the launch mount. You can kind of see them along the wall right here, but we haven't actually seen them turn on yet. There's another one right there. I feel like these could also be some sort of sensor, like if they're trying to be able to detect where the flames end up when they do their next static fire attempt, so that they can kind of see how much of an effect that the new flame diverter system is actually having. But yeah, they go all along the wall. Really, really curious what those are actually for. But let's move over to the orbital launch mount. And I think we will go ahead and start off with checking out the video from Mauricio. So let me get that over here. So if y'all haven't seen this, it's on YouTube. Mauricio posted this yesterday. And I do not have the sound going on here because it's going to pick up through my mic. So
Yeah, it's pretty loud as well.
yeah, this is pretty incredible. Uh, had posted after the first test that the next one was going to be at least 3 times more, and a lot of people were kind of confused on that, and so it's really awesome to see them do this full test. It's really difficult to kind of see what's going on down there until SpaceX ended up posting the video from above, which we'll check out here in a second. But yeah, we ended up learning a lot of new stuff about this system during this test. Number one, something that we didn't see before the first time they tested this was the actual water coming out of the top of the weir pipes over here. So that did not happen the first time around, and we were really confused because from our understanding, the purpose of this is to eliminate the air bubble inside of the weir pipe, so that you're not pushing a massive air bubble through reaching the plates. So it was really cool to actually see them use that this time around. And let's see, we got a better angle coming up here. I'm just going to let it play through.
I just can't help but be absolutely amazed that it's taken 3 months to get to this point to produce this full-blown state-of-the-art system.
Oh, okay, this is actually the end of that one. Before I show the one from SpaceX, this is actually a good angle to show. You guys can see that they have these small pipes that are mounted to the inside, to the top of the plates. And kind of going to explain this more in my upcoming episode, working on part 2 of the deep dive right now. But from what we're able to tell, these are some sort of most likely pressure sensors. And so I'm going to go ahead and show the view from above really quick and pause it. You can actually see we knew these were here before we actually saw them. So on the side of leg number 6, there's all these this conduit right here, which runs to the inside of that leg where there's a box mounted inside of the stairwell. And as you can tell, there are the sensors are going into different locations on the plates. So I think there's 8 of them. So one right here. I think there's one on each trapezoid section. So 1, 2. I feel like there's one right here, but it's tough to see. 3, 4. There's one right here, one right there. So 5, 6, and then 2 on the middle plate. So there's 8. So the way I'm making sense out of this is they're probably taking those pressure readings at those different spots in order to verify that they're seeing the pressure that they're expecting out of those. I guess the interesting thing is that I don't know how you make any adjustments based on that. I think it could be possibly related to increasing or decreasing the amount of holes in certain locations based on the pressure that they're seeing. But that's really something that we're probably never going to actually know the answer to. But let's go ahead and watch this footage. I guess before I even start, one thing that we were not able to tell from any of the images previously is that the holes are not where we necessarily thought they were. So, you can see all of these little dots all over the place. And initially we thought that each of those dots were holes. And so now that we've seen the way this actually looks when it's running, it's a bit of a mystery, I would say. Kind of, in my mind, thinking that they initially had holes in all of those positions and potentially welded every single one of them shut and then kind of shaved them down, which is what's giving it that look. But when we start the video, you can see that... okay, sorry. I'm going to play this all the way through. You can see the water come up in each of those positions. So there's 20 positions on the outer edge for the outer 20 Raptor engines. I'm going to back it up again. You see, y'all can see that.
Yeah, I noticed the water coming up by the legs as well. There's little streams coming up by them.
Yeah, that was an interesting part because, and I'm going to pause it once that starts right here. So down here, you can kind of see it start to come up from the around the edges. You can also see it on this side as well too. But what we don't see, and I'm trying to move this play bar out of the way, but I don't want to move. Hold on a second. Oh, wow. That was not what I wanted to do. So what we can also see is that there's nothing coming up from down here where we thought those holes were located. So that's really, really confusing the way that ended up working out. But one of the cool things about this is that because of the way the plates are designed, there's actually a much, much greater amount of water going through the center. And so you have each of the positions for the outer 20 engines, and it's really tough to see, but there's also circles. You can kind of see one right here, another one right here for the inner 13 engines. I'm sorry about that. And just briefly as it's coming up, you can almost make out each of those positions right here. So that's really cool. We, Ryan has been working on trying to understand the system for a really long time. And, him and I both kind of speculated in the beginning that there would be individual nozzles for each of the engine positions. And then once we realized that there was, a bunch of tiny holes in the plate instead of nozzles, we kind of thought that maybe there was some sort of change there. But really, really crazy the way this is designed. You can see that there's also holes in between the engine positions, and everything is shooting outwards. So the ones for the outer 20 engines are kind of shooting upwards a little bit more, but they're also pointed towards the gaps in the legs. And before they have a chance to even rise up that high, the center really kicks in and then shoots across them. So these are pointing upwards more, and the center is pointing outwards a lot more than the outer 20 are, and it really just kind of overtakes it.
Yeah, I've noticed it sort of creates like a bowl shape underneath the OLM almost, made out of water.
Yeah, definitely.
So I thought I'd probably just give my 2 cents on this right here real quick, since I'm trying to replicate this. And after I saw it, I was like, you know what, I'm not doing this. Because how do you scaling that thing down in reality to what we're trying to do is, I did so many models, and that center effect of them shooting out, it's almost like if those holes are angled like at 10-15 degrees to give that particular effect. So I'm not really sure, even before the water even comes out, you could barely even see the holes for that center hex. So it's a pretty complex system they got there. Even though it looks simple from it's just a sprinkler, but it's much more than that, you know. And like you mentioned, there's way more pressure in that inside hex than the other holes that you see around there. It's complicated. It looks complicated, not that easy.
Yeah, and I've kind of been playing around with lining this up with different footage, so I'll probably show that in my upcoming episode. I tried to sync it with the integrated flight test so that you could kind of see when to expect the engines to come on based on what's happening over with the gas pressurization side. But yeah, this is really interesting. I mean, so you had about and you can't really tell from this angle, but there's roughly it was like 8 seconds of full force, so it takes about 4 seconds for it to reach that point, and then there's 8 seconds of it being at max volume before they start to release the gas pressure, and then from there it kind of slowly starts to die down. But yeah, I mean, this is much different than I think a lot of people were expecting. And I guess time will tell if this actually is going to be the solution, because I think a lot of people are still rather skeptical on it. And rightly so. I mean, I really wish I could get this play bar to move. Usually I'm able to drag this around. I don't know what's going on.
I mean, here's another question. What does this mean for the countdown in the event that there's a hold, which is very likely, right? It never launches on the first attempt for the most part. So how many tries can they get with the water deluge doing the full pressure test? It's only one go, right? So they have to fill in the tanks. They have to fill them up again for a second attempt. Let's say there's a hold at this point. At this point that they start because this is prior to launch, obviously. So if there's a hold at this moment, they won't be launching there's no chance for a recycle that day, in other words, until they fill up the tanks.
Let's look at this. Let me see if I can find that point. This is not very smooth trying to do this. So what I'm looking at is over here when the water's shooting up into the air. I think the moment those close is when it immediately begins to pick up in volume out here. And I think the moment those close is probably the moment we'll see ignition from the booster. I mean, it's possible that it could start up earlier because it won't be at max thrust right away. So that will be something that we have to see. But I'm expecting that it would kick in, that the engines would kick in right here. And yeah, I mean, well, what we saw during the first launch was that, they had 3 engines out and they still sent it. So in my opinion, if ignition starts, they're not going to stop. So I just don't imagine a shutdown happening. And if it does happen, then yeah, you got a few days to recycle not only your propellants, but also water. I mean, I don't know. They probably may be able to accomplish that in a single day, but it is a massive amount of water. And once it gets going, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like even after you release the pressure, it's still going to keep going. So you may not use all the tanks, but I imagine it's probably difficult to start it up and not use at least half, if not more. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting aspect of it. And I think one of the other interesting parts about it is just how far it's shooting out. In my mind, I think the retention pond is semi-useless. So let's go ahead and take a look at the retention pond from above. The retention pond is located right here. So you have a one pond right here for the Raptor Chill boil off pit, essentially. and then next to that is where the retention pond is. So I'm assuming that to some degree the pad over here is slanted down so that it'll drain off in this direction. And I don't know, we may see them actually create a trench, essentially a runoff pit trench over here. But I don't know. I feel like less than an eighth of the water that's used in here will actually make it to the retention pond. It's literally shooting over the pond. So, yeah, I mean, to some degree, I can understand a lot of the concern that some of the people have with the situation with how it's designed. I don't know if it's even possible to like mitigate that without mitigate your runoff without expanding the pad all the way out here.
I guess it's probably worth mentioning. Obviously, we saw that test without any fire going straight at it yesterday. You know, it could be quite different when there's engines firing. It could keep things a bit more contained with the water.
Yeah, and that's very true. So let me go back to that again, the footage again. So when it starts to die down, y'all can see it right here, shooting way, way over. Once it starts to die down, I think most of that stuff is actually able to be retained. Let me wait until it actually starts to die off right here. So about when it reaches this point, I mean, if they have a trench on the side over here, it could possibly start collecting all the water from this point on, which is still a very large amount of water, but nowhere near the amount that's coming out towards the beginning. All of this theoretically could be captured, depending on how they finish this off. I mean, in my mind, it doesn't necessarily look like they're planning to run the trench all the way over here in order to capture that. But I'm on the fence about it. I don't know if it's necessary. You know, there's a lot of concern out there with, I guess, you know, violation of the Clean Water Act or something like that. But I just don't know how real that is, because number one, this is potable water. So in other words, drinking water. You know, after the first time they tested this system, like that, this is the dirtiest it will ever be. I personally believe they did a lot of work to prevent any construction debris from entering over here. So if y'all were paying attention, specifically the NSF stream showed it pretty well. They spent several hours cleaning the entire pad. They after the first test, which was a lot lower volume, there was a lot of water that ended up obviously on the edge of the pad. And from what I saw in the NSF footage, they ended up removing a lot of this dirt and trucking it away. And then they brought back more dirt to put along the edge right there. So, you know, when they did that initial, I'm almost want to call it a clean out of the system. I feel like all the construction debris are gone after that point, at least from the inside of the plates. So theoretically, and not even theoretically, you know, this should just be drinking water coming out here. So I don't know if the rules enough to say whether or not that's something that should be considered as far as like a violation of the Clean Water Act. I mean, because it's literally as bad clean water as you can get. It's drinking water. So, yeah.
We have a question from Jay Tan. It was a $100 super chat, which was basically asking that question. He said, CSI Starbase Zach, what are your thoughts on the controversy with the environmentalists / SpaceX and permits for water going into protected area? And that's kind of been what you were talking about. So I wanted to go ahead and just ask that for context.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not the type of person to just like write off those kind of concerns as non-existent. I just don't know how real those concerns are, because in my mind, like especially during a test like this, you don't have any plume interaction with the water. And even when you do, I've looked into what the actual exhaust constituents are after ignition. And matter of fact, let's even go ahead and look at it, because I feel like people comment on this stuff without actually knowing that information. So let's see. Appendix G exhaust plume calculations. So in SpaceX's own documentation, they list the thrust chamber nozzle exit species mass fraction, which is basically, your total exhaust plume, like what fraction of that mass is what what compound. So basically 41% CO2, 41% water. Then you have about 11% carbon monoxide. Then your percentages drop off like dramatically after that point. So I don't know. I guess the biggest one I maybe would be concerned about, you have nitric oxide down here. That's one of the biggest ones they were concerned about in this report specifically. But the mass fraction is ridiculously low. I actually even did the math to see what the total volume of each of these components would be. But obviously that's over the entire flight profile, and it's hard to bring that down to like the 8 seconds that it's on the pad. So yeah, I mean, I again, these fractions of all these other materials are so low that I just don't know if any of this is actually a real concern. Yeah, I've given this a lot of thought, like I said, because I've seen mention of it ever since they said that they were even going to build the system. And from what I've looked into it, I just really can't find anything there. But I don't know. I think this is one of those things that it's like so blatant, like you can't really like hide what's happening here, right? So I just have a hard time believing that SpaceX hasn't done their homework on this. And even if there's no like public documentation of them asking for permission to do so, I feel like, I don't know. I just have a hard time believing that they would knowingly do something, knowingly install a system that they theoretically would be sued and not allowed to use. And let's be real, they have done things in the past where without permission, like, for one, building the integration tower, that was one that they didn't really necessarily have permission for, and kind of had to gain that after the fact. Same thing with the launch pad at Pad 39A. Started building that before getting permission from NASA. So yeah, you can argue they do have a history of doing stuff like that, but this is something very, very different. Because it's make or break for the entire launch site. So I don't know. I feel like with the experience that they've had in the past with running into those issues, that they would probably know better by now. And that's just my opinion on that. It's very possible that that's not the case, but I don't know. A lot of smart people at SpaceX, and I have faith that they're doing their due diligence. Yeah. Any other questions on that?
Well, we have a couple more questions. When do we expect the missing deluge water tank to arrive from John T?
So that third deluge tank we know now is on its way. So there was a article that got posted to Twitter showing it traveling on the highway in Kansas. So that tank is on its way currently, and they're already basically set up for that right now. I'm gonna get to a different angle. Yeah, so they're already set up for that tank to arrive. They already have the key installed right here for whenever they get that flange. They're going to have to add a flange onto the tank just like they did with these. So it's going to be weird doing that, because I think they'll have to do it on the ground instead of in position like they did with the first two. But yeah, I think it said that from July 27th to August 2nd or something like that, it would be in Kansas. And if we base it off of last time, I think it took roughly 2 weeks after it arrived in Kansas for it to make its way to Starbase. So yeah, I would expect within the next sometime after the next 2 weeks, it'll arrive here. And I think that'll essentially be the final component of the system. Right now, they're still installing additional high pressure gas tanks. So with this tank here, without the tank here, I've calculated that this is roughly 63% of what volume is used at the Pad 39B launch site. And then once they have this tank installed here, I think it jumps up to 83%. So it's like 363,000 gallons or something like that versus 450,000 gallons, which is used at Pad 39B. But yeah, I think with this additional tank, that allows them to run the center part of the plate longer. And I imagine that one way they may use this, if they're especially if they're doing static fires with not 33 engines, like let's say they're doing 14 engines to test the autogenous pressurization, like that is usually a longer duration test. And so having that additional tank would allow them to run longer duration tests, I believe. Adding the additional gas canisters, I don't know. I feel like this seems like overkill from what's currently there. Like, I don't think this is what is needed just for that additional tank. So it seems to me like they're possibly increasing the pressure that they can run it at, which would essentially just you would expel all of that water much quicker, and that may actually be necessary, especially once you reach the Raptor 3s. So right now, Booster 9 has Raptor 2 engines and was like, what, 250 tons of thrust for Raptor 2s, and when you get up to Raptor 3s, it's at like 269. So like right now, they are, I would expect the stagnation pressure, which is kind of what you have to overcome. Stagnation pressure of the Raptor engines is probably around 17 bar with Raptor 2. And then when you reach Raptor 3, it jumps up to like 20 bar. And so that means you also need to increase the pressure of the water coming out. So I think these additional tanks theoretically may not actually be necessary for this first launch. They could be preparation for the future increase of thrust that's going to happen with Raptor 3s. Yeah, I'm sorry, that was a very long answer to that question. I kind of went off on a tangent there.
Zach, do we have any idea what the vertical brown tank is for, hidden underneath the scaffolding?
Still trying to figure that one out. That's the one of two mystery tanks right now. We kind of have an idea of what's going on with this one, but we're still waiting to figure that out. So, yeah, I think we have most of the system figured out other than this tank. And right now, we're not sold on this even being involved in the system at all. So initially, when it showed up, I thought that maybe this was a liquid nitrogen storage tank, and then you have your vaporizer to turn it into your liquid into gas, fill these tanks. But I don't think that's what's happening here. So we believe this may actually be a CO2 tank. There's a CO2 tank over here currently, which I mentioned a few weeks ago. Believe it's primarily for fire suppression within the integration tower and the launch mount. So, it's specifically in the control room of this building. There's an L-shaped control room down here with a bunch of computer equipment, and if you have gaseous methane building up at the bottom of this building, then you run a risk of explosions occurring or flashback occurring from the inside of this building. And so if I was when we don't know this for sure, but if I was designing this building, I would have some sort of fire suppression system, the essentially neutralize the room so that it's just simply not possible for fires to start in there. So we think that's what this is for, and probably something similar inside of the launch mount, with it being an enclosed space, needing to neutralize that that area to prevent explosions from occurring from within the table. And right now, the way this is placed right here, I don't know if the other tank would collide with it, the new tank. But possibly what they're doing here is just moving this system over to this corner, just to get it out of the way of all this. Let's see. Do we have anything else here that I haven't mentioned?
We have another question. Is the center point of the plate weak because it receives little water? Going back to the steel plate.
I'm not sure what they mean.
I'm guessing, like, for example, I think it's the total opposite, though. It's not that it receives little water. I think it receives, like you mentioned, it receives more water than the other parts of the plate. Like, does that make it structurally viable? Like, is it compromise the structural integrity of the plate since it has a lot of holes in that particular area?
Do they maybe mean the point in the very, very center, right in amongst? Yeah, if we play the video and fast forward it slightly, we can see what they mean then. There. So right in the middle of that plume of water. Would that be a weak point at all?
I doubt it. So, I mean, your center 3 engines are not acting directly into that center point. I mean, even I think the water is coming out of that center point as well too. So, like, I don't know. I can't see it being a weak point. There's just so much water down here that I don't think it will really make that big of a difference down there.
I almost feel like when I was talking to Ryan Hansen, we've been talking about this particular design, and he almost feels like some of the nozzles actually cross each other, but you can't see it from this angle. But that they actually crisscross each other. What was that?
I'm not sure if he still believes that, because it's hard to see it. Like, I don't see that happening here. Like right here, we should be able to see it. I don't see that happening.
Seems to be all straight outwards from that center.
Yeah, because there's a black spot that just resembles that there's really nothing going on in that particular spot. So there, and you could catch a couple of them that are not actually, like, they actually just squirt. They point up, but I don't think that's intentional. You can see a couple of them just kind of moving upwards and then realign. I don't know if you see it. Look
here, like the little. Yeah.
But that's not gonna do much.
I did notice him. Yeah, I did notice him. One of those jets did actually sort of flip over from one side to the other, right near the start of that. Then.
Yeah, oh yeah,
there, right there. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be crossing over. That is a possibility. Yeah, overall, I would say this is more impressive than I was expecting.
It's it's intense to say the least.
Yeah, really glad SpaceX provided this view. I mean, we would have never probably known that they have all these individual engine positions right here without that. Because it's, I mean, from 10,500 feet up, you really can't see that well under the table. So, yeah, this is really, really an amazing view. But yeah, do we have more questions on this? There's probably some more ground images that we can probably go through as well.
Yeah, here's another question. Do we know how much water all 3 tanks will hold when fully complete?
I'm assuming the big tanks?
The water tanks. I think that's what they were referring to. The water tanks, yes.
1.3 and 1.4 million liters, or 369,000 gallons. Roughly. It's probably slightly less than that.
So a bit more than one then.
Yeah, I mean, with only 2 tanks running, it's 1.08 million liters, and then 287,000 gallons. So adding the additional tank gives them additional 310,000 liters, or 82,000 gallons.
Now, do you reckon that's just to pump out more in one go, or is that more to add a longer duration to the system, that third tank?
I think it probably is a combination of duration versus, or also maybe just wanting more volume coming out of the center if they decide that they're not happy with how it's performing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
In reference to the center nozzle there, JK Video said, keep in mind that the rocket plume is going to interact with the water plume, flattening the water plume out some. So kind of like a cushion, I would say, right?
Yeah, but it's not cushioning. It's not doing anything to the actual stagnation pressure that's acting on the actual plate. So I've seen people describe this as some sort of like force field that's preventing the actual thrust from acting onto the ground, and that's not the way it really works. So yeah, I mean, it's even weird to me to call it a flame deflector, because the flame is naturally going to deflect no matter what. Like, it has no choice other than to do that. So interesting naming of that, I would say.
So your idea is that the thrust of the 33 Raptor is actually going to go past the water stream, in a sense, or will it totally prevent it from actually reaching the plate?
It has to reach the plate. Yeah, it's not like you're canceling out the forces. I don't think that's even possible. So primarily the goal is to handle the thermal loading. So, I mean, you have a massive amount of heat being generated by those engines, so you want to stop this top plate from melting, and I think that's the primary purpose. The actual design of the plate, the way it's sitting on top of the concrete, I think that is what's handling the actual thrust from the engines. So like it's evenly spreading the load onto the foundation, which it's transferring the load into the foundation essentially. So I don't know. I don't think. I mean, let's just put it this way: if the water alone was canceling out the thrust of the engines, as far as acting on the plates, then you wouldn't need the foundation to be anywhere near as upgraded as it is.
Zach, we have a super chat from Vernata. That's a $5 super chat. That's basically the same question along these lines. Hold on a second, I lost it.
You read it?
Yeah, anyway. So should we not expect a single flame to actually touch the steel plate? And then the comma correct. And so you're kind of answering that question, I think, as you were.
Oh, it's definitely going to touch the plate.
Yeah.
I don't think I think that what we won't see possibly is the flames reaching out beyond the legs. That might be something that we don't see. Like it may just be a column of fire, and then you may not actually see it exiting out the sides. And that would be interesting. And possibly just be just a massive. Well, you may not even see directly the steam exiting because it's maybe like clear, and then the white cloud would kind of start a little further out from the launch mount. But yeah, going to be really interesting to see the way that looks when they actually test it. The other thing to consider is you still have the fireworks system active, and that kind of that prevents you from seeing some of the flames as well too. Not really the same as what will happen on the bottom, but yeah, that is a factor as well. And I think the fireworks system's actually been upgraded to run off higher volumes of water, based on what I've seen with the water pipes on the other side. So if we look on, I don't know if we can even really see it here. No, because they got it covered up. Yeah, I believe they increased the size of the water pipe that's feeding the system. So yeah, I think the fireworks was going to use more volume than it did previously.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was. Go ahead, Nick.
No, you go ahead, Jake. That's all right.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was one of the people that thought that this system would actually stop the fire from hitting the plate. But yeah, now you mentioned that they've built that big foundation underneath. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense if the fire didn't hit the plate. It's definitely made me think differently there.
I was just going to say, go ahead, Zach.
It'll be tough to know. Like there's going to be so much steam coming out that I don't know if we'll actually be able to see through the steam cloud unless you're viewing it from above. So it'll be really tough to like actually view whether or not it's hitting the plate unless they like filmed it from a drone or something.
What is you all's predictions of what we're gonna see after the second launch? Is there gonna be like a buckle in the steel plate, or do you all expect it to just stay intact? What are you all's predictions? And let us know in the comment section what you all think.
I think it'll be fine. The steel plate, I think it'll hold up pretty well. But yeah, that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that because if it doesn't, then we got some really big problems.
Yeah.
So I'll say it better work. What about you, Mauricio? What do you think?
I mean, I'm not really, just gonna have to wait and see. I don't really want to give any comments on that, but we did have another question here. Are they using the GSE tanks for nitrogen and water for the deluge? There's a question from Cosmic.
Can you repeat that?
Are they using GSE tanks for the nitrogen and water for the deluge?
So they mean the vertical tanks, I'm guessing.
I guess I don't understand the question. I mean, yeah, they're definitely using water for the deluge. Yeah, I don't understand the question.
Yeah, I think they're asking if the vertical tanks are being used for that.
To supply the nitrogen.
Yeah, and then obviously the water's coming from the horizontal tanks behind the tower.
Yeah, I think are the commodities being replenished from the tank farm, whether it be water or nitrogen, I think is the way the question is being asked.
No, the water is delivered by tankers. Some of them fill up at the Sanchez site, some of them fill up possibly at the Massey site, then others are filling up in Brownsville. And the nitrogen, we're still working on that part. I don't want to say the whole deep dive episode before it comes out.
Come on, Zach.
Cool. Any more questions on that? I was going to point out something about this Raptor or the ship QD up here.
Yeah, what happened to the little white plate?
Yeah, they got rid of it. So the little 3D printed looking plate that they had up there, they've gotten rid of it. is now a like door essentially. So you can see that there's hinges on the side right here. There's a motor on the top hinge, which will flip this out of the way. So that's really cool.
permanent thing now?
Actually, what was that?
Is that like a permanent thing now?
It looks like it. I would assume that part of no, it's not a good angle. Let's see. See if I find a better angle of this.
Yeah, I knew they put a new cover of some kind on it, but yeah, I didn't realize it was actually hinged like that with a little motor on it. That's pretty interesting.
I mean, it's a good way to go because now they don't have to get up there and install that every single time. So it makes it faster. I mean, it just open and close, and when it pulls away from the vehicle, the door will close shut and protect all those nozzles on there, which is good because especially last time during the launch attempt, they weren't able to get to the pad for a few days, and so that kind of just sat open, unprotected. So with this in place, they'll be able to immediately close this and make sure that there's no contaminants or anything getting inside of the nozzles or the valves.
This is like a mini hood then, basically. That's quite cool.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. It's looking good. Let's see. Do we have anything else that we haven't covered here? I'm
I
scrolling.
think.
I mean,
think
there
that's
is
pretty
another
much
question
everything.
that we can maybe look at. Paul Harris asked, did the explosives bunker get moved?
No. If we, let's see.
Yeah, it's still out in the wetlands, pretty much. In its
Um,
own little location.
yeah, I'm trying to find an angle that shows it. And that's not going to do it.
I mean,
I-
eventually it probably will have to move when they expand the launch site.
Yeah, maybe I need to look at a tank farm image instead to see if I can find it. It's still down there.
Looking pretty battered.
It did better than I expected it to. I mean, shoot, you'd think that explosive bunker needed to be out of the way of the explosions, but
Yeah, I feel like obviously, yeah, they got to put it out the way somewhere, but I feel like they could have put it somewhere else out the way and not right in the firing line of the OLM. I don't quite understand this.
yeah, I would think you want your explosives on the backside of the integration tower or something like that, where they're protected by the integration tower. But here it is.
Well, we didn't get any extra fireworks during the launch, so guess it's not all that bad.
Yeah, turned out well. Let's see. Any other questions?
The last question here from William Foss. Is this plumbing potentially for cooling of the OLM top ring later on? I'm not sure which plumbing he was referring to.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be hard to find now, I think.
Wait, say that again. Can you
You want me to
repeat
read
it?
out the question?
Yeah.
Is the plumbing potentially for cooling of the OLM top ring later on? Yeah, it's going to take us a while to find out.
No idea, but I mean, I guess we are expecting, or at least that's what Elon mentioned, was that they, in the future, need to do something like that. As far as I can tell, they haven't reached that point yet, and obviously we didn't see that during the test, so maybe that'll be something that happens in the future launches. But yeah, I don't think that we've seen anything for that yet.
And before we leave, I guess, I don't know if we talked about the pedestals for the new tanks.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
was just
if you
looking
went
at
over
those. Yeah, they are moving very slow on these. It doesn't seem like they're in a huge rush to get this finished. Um, they've gotten about, I don't know, just under half of them completed. But yeah, these are much, much larger foundations than even what's present for these bigger methane tanks. So it's going to be really interesting to see what ends up showing up here. I think they're going to be uh, really, really large tanks.
I just can't wait to see the stupidly long tank farm once they got all these tanks installed.
I feel like secretly they're going to hate it, like just the way it looks. It's something that they have no choice to do other than do, but I feel like they wish they didn't have to.
And that's it for the questions. We're at the top of the hour. Do we want to do the sign-offs?
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll go ahead and start us off. Yeah, thank you to everybody for joining us today. I'm glad to be back this week. I do need to take time off from time to time, especially with how doing my own channel at the same time. It's a lot of work. I don't really get out much, I would say. So glad that I was able to make it this week and feeling a lot better than I was last week. And thank you to all of us, everybody who joined us today. And oh yeah, we haven't said this the entire stream. If you guys could do us a favor before you leave and hit that like button, we would really appreciate you. We try not to mention it too often, and I guess we didn't mention it at all this time. So yeah, make sure you guys do that. And with that, I will pass it off to Jake, and then I'll see you all next time.
It's been great to be back for another stream, and I'll be honest, I'm during this stream I found a lot of new stuff out myself for the first time after being a week away as well last week. And yeah, for the next stream, hopefully I should be a lot more in the loop again. With that, I will pass it over to Nate.
Yeah, great stream. Good to be with everybody. Always so many changes. I can't wait to see what will happen with the testing and all the building within the next weeks to come. I'm not sure if Indian Star is with us. Indy, are you with us still? Well, I'm not sure. I didn't hear her, so I'm going to pass it off to Mauricio. Oh, sort of heard you then.
It's all right. Go ahead and pass.
All right, Mauricio, we'll let you take us home.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today for episode 84. And it doesn't feel like it's been 84 episodes, though, for some reason. But I don't know. Thank you so much for the donations, the support, and many thanks to SpaceX for all the work that they're doing out there. A lot of new things that haven't been done before. One question, has anybody done something like that before for the water-cooled steel plate? I've been trying to look around and haven't seen anybody doing anything similar to that, right?
I don't think so.
I can't say I've seen anything.
So yeah, anyways, thank you so much for joining us today, and that's it for me. Indian Star, if you have a chance, or anybody here can do the sign-off.
I don't think she's with us. All right, I guess I'll take care of it. Main engine cutoff, stage separation confirmed. Love ya, bye.